Good day. And it is a good day, thanks to some great statistics. Authorities say that more than 30 million Americans have quit smoking, and they've done so for good reason. There's now no doubt that smoking isn't only a nasty habit, it's a major threat to your well-being.
The health threat from smoking continues to loom. Experts say cigarette smoking is now as deadly as the great epidemics of typhoid, cholera, and tuberculosis once were. The reason cigarettes are so deadly? They're linked to many different diseases.
If you quit smoking, your chances of suffering a heart attack will decrease within 24 hours. In only 8 hours, your blood will go back to carrying the normal amount of oxygen. Smoking has been proven to decrease the oxygen content of your blood.
The best news of all about smoking is quitting. Anyone can do it anytime they like. And in Control from Within, a 9-step program to stop smoking, you'll get plenty of help to do just that. And you'll get it from one of the most admired authors and social commentators in the world. Dr. Wayne Dyer has helped millions travel the path of self-improvement, teaching them with warmth, humor, and insight. He's the author of several best-selling books, including Your Erroneous Zones, Pulling Your Own Strings, Gifts from ICUS, What Do You Really Want for Your Children, and You'll See It When You Believe It. He's also recorded several best-selling Nightingale Conant programs. Among them are Choosing Your Own Greatness, How to Be a No-Limit Person, What Do You Really Want for Your Children, and Transformation. And Wayne Dyer is a psychotherapist with a doctorate in counseling psychology. In Control from Within, you'll hear 9 steps to transform yourself from a smoker to someone who is smoke-free. The first part of this program will focus specifically on smoking. The second part will apply Dr. Dyer's techniques to broader segments of our lives. You can take the steps in any order you like, just as you can take control of the habit of smoking. It's been proven that quitting smoking is one of the most effective ways to improve your health. To help you stick with your decision, we'll be sharing facts from a report from former United States Surgeon General C. Everett Koop. When you hear what the experts have to say about smoking, you'll be more convinced than ever that your decision to be smoke-free is the right one. The Surgeon General's report says that thousands of studies have documented smoking-related cancers, heart disease, pregnancy complications, and other adverse health effects. Cigarette smoking causes more than 300,000 deaths annually, and it's the chief avoidable cause of death in our society. So let's look at step 1 in our 9-step program, learning to make positive choices in your life.
In As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, he said, circumstances do not make a man. They reveal him. So you have to be for, it's like you don't quit smoking. That's why people have such a tough time quitting smoking, because they want to quit. Quitting is negative. You don't lose weight. You don't want to lose weight. You want to see yourself looking the way you want to look and get that picture in your mind. Everything else will work perfectly once you have the picture in your mind of how you want to look. And you have to stop trying to quit smoking. You have to be health instead of being poison. When you take a cigarette and put it in your mouth and inhale it and it goes down into your lungs, you are poison. Poison is you. It's not something you're doing. It's something you are. That's what you are. Isn't it? So once you stop seeing yourself as poison and see yourself as treatment, and you become the treatment, it's very simple. It's like that's how you get off of anything that is discouraging to you. All right?
When I quit smoking over 25 years ago, I made it the most pleasurable, enjoyable experience I ever had in my life. It was not stressful. It wasn't tension-producing. I didn't tell myself that because I am going to now go through this process of getting the addiction out of my system, on top of that, I have to choose to be stressful. It was pleasant. I was proud of myself. Every minute that I went without having cigarettes, I became more and more proud of the person that I was, rather than telling myself, oh, this is so stressful and it's so tension-producing. The world is as it is. The people in it are as they are. And how you process it determines whether you're going to be full of stress or not. Nothing else determines that.
Experts compared tobacco use to other drug dependencies, including heroin and cocaine. All tobacco products contain substantial amounts of nicotine, and it's the nicotine that's addictive. Some say it's one of the most addictive drugs known. Nicotine is the substance that leads to addiction. Authorities say that it functions as a mood alternator for smokers. When you inhale smoke, the nicotine goes into your bloodstream and to your brain in seconds. As you probably know, lots of people continue to smoke even though they know it's bad for them. It might hurt them physically, damage their furniture, and make their homes smell like an ashtray. It can even affect the people they live and work with. But for some people, smoking comes before everything else. Have you ever known someone who lit up a cigarette before he even got out of bed? You can choose something positive by capitalizing on the small victories you make over smoking. And in doing this, you can realize that you're completely capable of becoming smoke-free.
The word addiction somehow implies something's got a hold of you. Something outside controls you. We have to get rid of the concepts and the terms addiction, something outside of ourselves, and instead see this smoking demon that you've allowed to get a hold of you as the result of a choice that you have made, and that the way that you break it is in present moments, not in some long range down the road out there, someday maybe I'll be a non-smoker or an ex-smoker. The fact is that the first time you want a cigarette and you don't have one, you can shout out loud, "I'm a non-smoker," and feel great about that. What a wonderful declaration to make. Even if you slip, even if you decide that you're not at this point willing to do what it takes, you don't punish yourself for that. You just say, all right, the next time I want one and I don't, I'm a non-smoker. Say it. Try saying it out loud. It's a terrific thing to say, and you will feel so good for being able to call yourself that if you need a label.
You can learn to make positive choices in your life, one step at a time, one challenge at a time. Part of that involves your actions. In this case, the action is smoking cigarettes. And part of making choices involves what you think about. This brings us to the next step in our 9-step program to stop smoking. Step 2, controlling your thoughts.
There's 2 words that are very important for all of us to look at. Stress is one, tension is the other. What are these things? A lot of people think there's stress in the world. It's my belief that there's no stress in the world. The world is exactly the way it's supposed to be. There's no tension in the world as far as I'm concerned. If you go out into the world and try to bring back a bucket of stress or a bucket of tension, you're going to always come up empty. And you'll see in looking at stress-reducing magazines and articles that have been written about this subject that they have a whole list of things that are supposedly stress producers. If you move from one location to another, that's worth 50 stress points. If you go through a divorce, that's 43 stress points. If you try to quit smoking, that's 19 stress points. And if one of your children starts smoking, or if somebody leaves home, and it's this endless list of things that people use, and then they count up how many stress points they have, and that's about as stress-building a concept as I can think of. The truth is that there are only people thinking stressful thoughts. There are only people thinking tension thoughts. And that learning how to think, learning how to manage your insides, is the only way to eliminate the kinds of reactions that you get in the world. If you think that this thing outside of you is causing you to be stressful, or this thing over here, or your in-laws, or your problems that you have on the job, or whatever it is that you come up with, and you think that those are things that are going to cause you to be stressful, then I can guarantee you that you're going to be stressful the rest of your life, because there's always going to be someone or something that isn't going to go the way you want it to go. And when it comes to quitting smoking, there's a lot of people right away put pressure on themselves and say, well, this is a very stressful thing that I'm now undertaking. I'm now going to have to give up this addiction that I have become accustomed to, and that is going to create stress in me. If you have that kind of an expectation, then what you're doing is saying that the absence of nicotine in my system is causing me stress, and it's just as silly and neurotic and foolish as saying that my in-laws cause me stress or that the stock market causes me to be stressful. The fact is that you and only you determine whether you're going to have stress in your life, and that only comes from how you choose to process your world, not how the world is. The world is just the way it is. And the people in it are just the way they are. They're all on their own path. They're all doing what they have to do. And how you process it, how you internalize it, what you do with it is the total determiner of whether or not you're going to be a stressful person in your life. Bjorn Borg was asked about stress at Wimbledon on center court. How can you go out there and be so calm and play these phenomenally pressurized games and look so calm? And his response was, it's just hitting a tennis ball over the net. That's all I do. That's what I do. I'm a tennis player. All the rest of that stuff is something that the media has invented or that the newspapers have created. There's no stress out there. There's only the way I choose to think when I'm out there hitting the tennis ball. That's the key to making any technique that we use for the reduction of stress or the reduction of tension to work. It isn't the technique. It is how we choose to process it.
The Surgeon General's report says that nicotine can serve as a reinforcer to motivate tobacco-seeking behavior. That means the more you smoke, the more you'll want to smoke. The experts say that smokers develop a tolerance for nicotine and smoke, and they can become dependent. But you can quit, as long as you know what you're up against and how to deal with it.
The issue of how you feel when you are a non-smoker, as opposed to how you feel when you're a smoker, is really crucial in this undertaking that you're commencing in your life. You probably have convinced yourself that you're not going to feel as good when you go through this process of non-smoking as you do when you have a cigarette. Because after all, you smoke to feel good, and it feels good to have a cigarette, and that's what you've convinced yourself of. And what you have to work at is changing around how you reward yourself. Now, when you have a cigarette and you, quote, feel good as a result of that temporary high that you're getting from the nicotine, you are rewarding yourself with poison for a temporary high. That's the reward system that you've created. What I want to suggest to you is that you can begin to reward yourself for the opposite behavior with non-poison. In other words, you're going to feel fantastic when you're a non-smoker if you reward yourself in the proper way. If you, every time you want a cigarette, you give in and have a cigarette, you're going to feel terrible, all right? Because you no longer are the strong person that you know you are inside. You're not behaving that way. So you're now rewarding yourself with poison. If, in fact, you want a cigarette, you have two choices. I can either have a cigarette or I'll not have one. Take first choice. I have a cigarette. And how do you feel after being weak, after having given up on yourself? You feel lousy. Now, that's one choice. Now what you can do is take the other choice. I want a cigarette, and I'm not going to have one. What can I reward myself with for that? You don't want to be looking for a piece of chocolate cake or something equally disturbing to your metabolism. What you want to do is become an inner-directed person who rewards themselves by congratulating yourself and patting yourself on the back. You say to yourself, how terrific, look at how great you are, look at how strong you are. You wanted a cigarette, and you didn't have one. That's fantastic. You are spectacular. You are a phenomenal person. That's what you do. You change around your reward system. Instead of rewarding yourself with poison and feeling lousy, you reward yourself with self-congratulatory pats on the back for being strong. And every single time, and I still do it 25 years later, If I wanted a cigarette, and I saw people smoking, and every once in a while, I'll smell the smell of a cigarette under the certain conditions, and I'll go, oh yeah, I remember that. And I say, I don't do that. And I'll go, hey, look at you. Look at how terrific you are. You reward yourself for the proper things instead of for the improper things. You reward yourself with healthy rewards rather than with unhealthy rewards, all right? And the healthy reward is a reminder of how strong you are. Every time you do something that makes you a little bit stronger, that makes you a little bit further along the path of enlightenment, you will feel better for it.
In his report, Surgeon General Koop compares tobacco with other drug dependencies. He says environmental factors, including drug-associated stimuli and social factors, are important influencers of initiation, patterns of use, quitting, and relapse to use of other addictive drugs. That means when, where, and why you smoke can have a lot to do with breaking or making your cigarette habit. With this in mind, think about when and where you smoke most. Think about the occurrences that make you want to pick up a cigarette. Is it dealing with a difficult family member? Pressure on the job? Or boredom? Whatever it is, identify the times you're most likely to smoke. Then, when you find yourself in those specific situations or feeling that specific way, stop whatever you're doing. Take steps to change the feelings or the situations. Walk out of the room for a short break if you're dealing with a difficult person. Get a drink of water. Call a friend. Make a choice to take some action besides smoking, and stay with it until you have reduced the urge to smoke. It might help to remind yourself of the benefits of being smoke-free. Chances are your home, car, and clothes will smell better. If you stop buying cigarettes, you'll be able to spend that money on something much more beneficial. And if you stop smoking cigarettes, you'll be able to spend your energy on something much more enjoyable. When people stop smoking, they can be overwhelmed by the challenge, especially if they've been long-time smokers. The thought of giving up a habit of many years can be discouraging, but you can disarm that thought by thinking of quitting a moment at a time, or an urge at a time. This is step 3, living in the now.
There's a real key word in our language. That word has got 3 letters in it. It's spelled N-O-W. Now. And very simply, it is the working unit of your life. It's all you have. Your entire past, your entire history up until this moment is in a dimension that we'll call thought. Meaning you can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't get a hold of it, you can't grasp it. If you have to divide things into 2 categories, one is physical form, and the other is the other dimension that encompasses everything else that is invisible. Thoughts, feelings. In what form is this past that we talk about? It's all thought. Everything that's happened to you up until this moment is a thought, and you can't have any of it back. Similarly, the future is also in this dimension outside of form, called thought, thinking. There's a lot of names for it, the astral plane, there's a lot of fancy terms for it, but it basically boils down to it's not physical form, it's something else. All that physical form is, that form that you are in, that body that you are occupying, is something that lives in the present moment. Now, this is it. There is no way you can do anything other than the present moment. Quitting smoking is no different than eating spinach, or driving your car, or making love to your wife, or anything that you do in your life. You can only do it in this moment in form. You can be in thought in the past, you can be in thought in the future, but in form, you can only live in the now. It's the working unit of your physical life. And you do things in your life a day at a time. I mean, that's the basic structure for doing it. And understand something about this now. Let's say you're a smoker, and you're smoking a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. The person who is smoking 30 cigarettes a day has got some established points of view about how difficult it's going to be for me to accomplish this task of being an ex-smoker. Some of those are very negative. I've tried it before, it didn't work, I just crave them anyway, I'm gonna want them for the rest of my life, and why should I spend my life being in pain and wanting something, and if all of us have got to die anyway, so what difference does it make when I die? All of these kinds of excuses that so many people use to maintain something that they don't really feel comfortable tackling. The person who goes one 24-hour period of time in their life without having a cigarette is different as a result of that 24-hour period of being pure or not having the poison, not being the poison. All I say to you is, let that person decide whether they want to continue, not the person who is still smoking saying, I'm only going to want something. Let that person, in that now moment, decide whether I want to go one more day. And I would also say to you that you can only live your life in moments. And as you think about, is it possible for me to be an ex-smoker? I would say to you, can you go for a couple of minutes without smoking? You would say, of course, I can go a couple of minutes. I would say, can you go an hour? And you'd say, well, of course I can go an hour. I don't smoke when I'm in church. I don't smoke when I'm in the theater. I don't smoke in elevators. There's a lot of places that I can go. Yes, of course. Well, all I can say to you is that's all you get. You get moments to live. You don't get lifetimes to live. Those are all thoughts. In form, you only get moments, hours, days to live in. And anything that you can do in an hour, then let the person who's gone an hour without it decide whether they want to go another hour. Not the person who's puffing away saying, I'll only want more anyway. Because so many people, when they go to attempt something dramatic, like eliminating tobacco from their lives, start out with this conception that it's going to be, I'm going to want this for the rest of my life, or it's going to be this difficult. And I can tell you from real experience that there's nothing further from the truth. I mean, the idea of smoking a cigarette, for me, who used to smoke a pack a day, the idea of me smoking a cigarette is as foreign as any thought that could ever enter into my consciousness. The idea that I could possibly do that, or the idea of craving it. And I didn't get to that point by the minute I put down cigarettes saying, all right, now I'm never going to crave cigarettes again. I am at this point as a result of having lived moment by moment and letting the new person who's a little further along the pike make those decisions rather than letting the addicted person make the decision based upon some future hypothesis that has no validity in it other than to keep you stuck where you are. Now is the working unit of your life. Live it now. Live it only in this moment as you undertake this magnificent challenge that you're undertaking. And as you do that, and you live this moment, then you let the next moment go by, and the next, and the next, and let that new person decide. That's one of the greatest keys to eliminating anything that is self-defeating.
Living in the moment means you have to stop yourself from getting bogged down in what might happen, or how you might feel if whatever you're worrying about comes to pass. And don't forget, many worries are unfounded. Living in the now means dealing with each moment as it comes, whatever it brings. Nothing is too great to handle if we isolate it and deal with it on a singular basis. As Wayne explains, we can apply this principle to an addiction to smoking.
The issue of addiction and controlling it is fundamental to understanding what an addiction is. See, we think of an addiction as something that's external to ourselves. Like, what have you got? Oh, I got an addiction. Oh, no, you got an addiction. I got measles, she's got chicken pox, and I've got an addiction, all right? It's not like that, an addiction. To me, it's not like that. An addiction is a choice that you've been making for a long time, that you've become accustomed to, and is now a regular part of your living pattern in your life. That's what an addiction is. It is a choice. Yes, it may be for you a difficult choice to stop making. It may be. You may choose to see it in a different light, but you have to understand it as something that is yours. You own it. It doesn't own you. You created it. It didn't create you. You are your addiction as a result of your choices, not something that was dumped on you. So you take responsibility first and foremost. And that's a key word, responsibility, because it means to respond with ability rather than to respond with disability. If that was the word, then we'd be saying respond to disability. But it's not, it's responsibility. So what you want to do in terms of tackling an addiction that you have created for yourself is to first and foremost take responsibility for the fact that you created it and stop blaming the cigarettes. The fact that they're available isn't the issue. The fact that they're legal or not legal isn't the issue. The fact is that you made this choice. And you continue to make it on a daily basis. So if you understand it in those terms, then what you do when you no longer want the addiction is you begin to tell yourself, I am now going to make new choices that are going to help me to control the results of the kinds of choices I've been making in the past. And that just simply comes down to thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, how you choose to process this whole undertaking that you are commencing in your life right now. How are you processing it? What are you telling yourself? If you are convincing yourself that the cigarettes are the demon that you have to exorcise in order for you to be free of the addiction, next week it'll be something else as soon as you get off of that. It'll be chocolate, or it'll be thumb sucking, or it'll be something outside of yourself again. What you have to see and say to these cigarettes is that I have chosen you rather than you chose me. So to control an addiction, you take responsibility for it. Then you ask yourself the key question, is this going to be difficult? Or is this going to be easy? I've heard all the excuses about quitting smoking. Let's look at what's easy and what's difficult in life. Let's look at a smoker, first of all, and smoking behavior. When people tell me how difficult it is to quit smoking, I laugh. Because I think it's much more difficult to smoke and be a smoker than to be a non-smoker. Look at it. What do you have to do? You got to take some of your money to the tune of $1 or so a pack, a couple of dollars a day, perhaps, that you are earning, and you have to go out and you have to get in your car, because we know you're not going to run there, not if you're smoking, and you have to fire up 4,000 pounds of steel and get it going. You got to put gasoline into your car to do that. You got to get in your car. You got to put it in reverse. You got to back out of your space. You got to drive down to the store. You got to get out of your car. You got to reach into your pocket. You got to get some money out. You got to take the money. You got to put it down on the counter. You got to get your pack of cigarettes. You got to take the cigarettes. You got to take that little red thing that's at the top, and you got to do this for it. Then you got to take the cellophane off. Then you got to do this to the cigarettes, right? Then you got to open up the little foil that's at the top. You got to hit one down. Then you got to do this to it and make sure that it's all. Then you got to take that cigarette and you got to put it in your mouth. You've always got to carry fire. It's like you're a caveman again, right? You got to carry fire someplace, so you got to get some matches. If you don't have matches, you got to get in your car again, or you got to ask somebody if they've got, or you got to get a lighter. And if you got a lighter, then you got to go out and buy fluid and keep that thing full. And then you got to light this thing. And lots of times when you do this, the ashes then begin to start falling all over you. So you got now an ash control problem. All right, now that you have finally got this thing lit, and you got to put the ashes here, or you got to put them over here, or you got to find an ashtray, or you got to drop them down your pants, or sometimes, especially when you're driving, when the cigarette ash at the top falls off because you bounced it, then you got it down in your pants, and you're trying to get the thing off, and it's burning you, and people are looking at you through the window, wondering why you're acting so strange, and then you got to find a place to put it out. Now what you got to deal with is you got smelly hands. You got stains on your hands, and you're smelling them all the time, right? And you're looking at it, and you know that it's filthy. So now you got to go someplace and wash your hands. And now you start to look at your teeth, and you find that your teeth are turning color as well. So now you got to get in a toothpaste doesn't work, and all the other things that they sell don't work because you're constantly got these stains on your teeth. So now you got to make an appointment to go to your dentist to have this stuff scraped off of your teeth. I mean, this is like a lifetime, lots and lots of stuff. Plus, you got bad breath all the time, all right? And then you got to worry about, as soon as you put it out, you got to worry about, am I going to run out? So you got to carry an extra pack someplace with you. I mean, to be a smoker is very complicated and very difficult, and you got lots and lots of stuff to do. You know what you have to do if you're a non-smoker? Nothing. Nothing. You don't have to do any of that. You just don't smoke. Now, don't try to convince me that it's easier to be a smoker than it is to be a non-smoker. I guarantee you that if you look at it realistically, it's a lot easier to be a non-smoker than it is to be a smoker. The only difference is what you tell yourself. And that is what, of course, you're going to go to work on.
What you tell yourself won't make the only difference in quitting smoking. There are some physical actions you can take to become healthier and less attached to smoking. This brings us to the next step in our 9 steps to become smoke-free: becoming physically fit through exercise and diet.
Fitness, to me, goes hand in hand with enlightenment. It isn't something that you do after a while. It's something that you are. I was at a restaurant not too long ago, and it's one of these restaurants where they sit you down and they also sit the other people. They try to get as many people in the room as they possibly can, so you might as well just assume that you're having dinner with the people that they sit you next to. And I watched the things that the people next to me were doing. It was a young couple in their 20s, all right, and I'm in my 40s. And my wife and I were there to have a pleasant dinner, and I noticed the first thing that this couple did was that they had some hard liquor. He had scotch on the rocks, she had a Manhattan. And I noticed that that's something that I don't do any longer in my life. I did at one time, and I never really made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to consume hard liquor any longer. Somehow, it just isn't what I am any longer. Then I noticed these people doing some other things that were really interesting to me. I was trying to be as non-judgmental as I could. They took salt, sodium chloride, all right, poison, and they took this salt and they poured it all over the food that they were eating. And I noticed that I don't do that any longer. And I never sat down and wrote out goals and had a determination that I am not going to eat salt anymore in my life. Certainly everything you eat practically has some salt in it. But I don't artificially add to it anymore. And I never decided not to. And I noticed that. And I noticed when they were finished with their meal that they ordered this brown cup of poison, which was full of caffeine, all right? And they were consuming that. And I noticed that that's something that I don't do. And I never decided not to. And then to top off this wonderful evening that they were having, they each lit up a cigarette. And as they finished their cigarette and walked out of the restaurant, they're going, wasn't that a great meal? And meantime, they had spent the entire hour and a half poisoning themselves in a lot of different ways. And I was thinking that being fit physically has more to do with where you're going in life and what your path is and how you see yourself. And that when you get that part straightened out, the rest of all of these bad habits, the addictions, the habits of putting foods into your system that aren't any good, the habits of smoking, these kinds of things seem to automatically almost go out of your life. And while I'm not sitting here saying, oh, this is some easy little thing and all you have to do is become enlightened and all the rest of it will fall into place, in some ways there's a lot of truth in that. That when you make the commitment to love yourself, to treat yourself well, to value this temple that houses who you are, when you value it and celebrate it and think of it as something that's really significant and love it and practice that, then the rest of it seems to automatically fall into place. And one of those automatic fall-ins is the elimination of smoking. It becomes something that you no longer want to be the poison. You now want to be the treatment. You don't want to come up with a technique or a strategy to eliminate it. You are health as opposed to dishealth or dis-ease or disease. It's what you are, not so much what you're doing every moment. And the more you get in touch with what kind of a human being am I? How can I fill myself with harmony, with serenity, with acceptance, with love for myself, so that I can radiate that out to other people, and that's all I have to give away, then you begin to give that away to yourself as well. You just automatically become a more fit human being.
You can become a more fit human being if you quit smoking. Authorities say you can reduce the risk of heart attack if you become smoke-free. You'll breathe easier, and food will taste better to you. The Surgeon General's report shows that cigarette smokers weigh less than comparably aged non-smokers. Now, it's common for people to gain weight after they quit smoking. There are lots of reasons this happens, and they vary from person to person. As we said before, taste improves, so food is more appealing. Some people eat instead of smoke, and others reward themselves for not smoking by eating. Some smokers say they won't quit because they'll gain weight. But authorities say if you watch your diet, drink lots of water, and get regular exercise, you'll be a good match for the lure of a cigarette. You can find the exercise program that's right for you if you start out slowly and work up to more challenging activity. Wayne did that. Be sure to check with your doctor, though, to make sure the program you choose is right for you.
The first time I ever got through a mile, when I undertook this running program of mine and this exercise program of mine, the first time I ran a mile, when I finished the mile, I was like this, and I couldn't catch my breath. And I thought, and now there's lots of ways to reward myself for finishing a mile. For the first time, the first mile I ran in my life, I was about 34 years old, and I got through a mile, all right, except for when I was a young kid. And I could reward myself by saying, no more am I doing this. I'm going to get somebody to drive me around the track next time, and I'm not going to be doing anything like this and getting myself out of breath. But I didn't. The next day, when I decided I was going to run again, I reminded myself of how terrific I was to get through a mile. And I said to myself, I wonder if I can do it again. And then I did it again. And I was breathing about like this. Not nearly as bad as the day before. And I reminded myself, look at how terrific you are. You ran a mile 2 days in a row. You're fantastic. I'll let that person decide whether they want to do it again tomorrow. And the next day I got out there and I ran a mile about like that. And I didn't even have to sit down. I didn't even have to throw up. I didn't have sweat all over me. None of that. And I kept rewarding myself with positive rewards. And after 4 days of running a mile, I was getting ready to run my second one. Rewarding myself with something positive and feeling really terrific about now I had converted this perfect machine that I am from an out of shape, unable to run a simple mile, to a person who could now do it after just a week's time without even breathing hard, all through positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement of going back to old, fat, slothful, out of shape ways. That's how you do it. You don't do it with some gimmick. You don't need anybody to hypnotize you unless you decide that's part of your program. You're going to be willing to do whatever it takes. But basically, what you need is a reward system that comes from within. You see, your problem of being a smoker is that you're motivated by something outside of yourself in order to feel good. Every time you want to feel good, you reach outside of yourself for something to accomplish that. And the thing you reach for, of course, is a cigarette. For drug addicts, it's a high of some kind. When you're inner directed, which is the highest place you can get to, and you want to be up, you want to be high, and you want to feel good, an inner directed person doesn't know how to reach outside in order to bring themselves to that level. They go within. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Go within. Find the rewards for being strong and tell yourself how terrific you are for being strong rather than rewarding yourself with poison for being weak.
The rewards of becoming smoke-free are yours for the taking. We'll examine steps 5 and 6 in the process in the next session of our program. If you've ever tried to change a habit, you've probably experienced the tendency to focus on what you're not supposed to do, instead of thinking about doing something else, something positive. If you're trying to change your eating habits, you think about food. If you're trying to get out of a bad relationship, you inevitably think about the person you're trying to break away from. This kind of thinking can be a powerful deterrent to our success, whatever our goal. But we all have the ability to harness the strength of thought if we learn to practice positive thought processing. That's what we'll learn in our next step. It's step 5, visualizing.
A man named Ralph Waldo Emerson, back in the 19th century, said, "You become what you think about all day long." I don't think there's any one sentence that sums up what I believe and live better than that sentence. You become what you think about all day long. Let's look at this process of how we think. Thinking is done in pictures. If I say garbage can to you, you don't think G-A-R-B-A-G-E and put all of that together. Your mind thinks in pictures, all right? And pictures are what you have to look at in terms of who you are, where you are in your life. There's 3 components to visualization that all relate to being healing, being an ex-smoker. One is that you will do what you think about. You act, you're doing, that small part of your humanity, that is what you're out there actually doing, is a reflection of how you think about yourself. What kind of thoughts do you have? If you are playing tennis and you go out there to hit a backhand and you're running towards the ball and telling yourself, I can't hit backhands, I'm no good at this, I've never had a backhand before in my life, everybody knows I can't hit backhands, that's why this guy's hitting to my backhand. Here we go again, I'm about to lose another tennis match because everybody hits to my backhand and I don't have a backhand. That's the picture you have of yourself as somebody without a backhand. Then when you get to the ball, you are going to act based upon the image that you have. And sure enough, you're going to do it and you're going to reinforce, see, I told you, I can't hit backhands, I knew it. All right, and that's going to be your way of reacting. On the other hand, if you change that image around and tell yourself, I can hit a backhand. I've got a hand. I've got a body. I've got a racket in my hand. Other people can do it. I don't have a genetic predisposition to not hitting backhands. It isn't because my mother liked my sister better or that I didn't inherit the right genetic structure to hit backhands. I can hit backhands. I'm going to practice visualizing myself hitting backhands. All right? And as you approach the tennis ball, believing that it's something that you can do and seeing yourself doing it over and over and over again and practicing that, then eventually you'll be able to hit backhands. But you'll never be able to do it when you tell yourself that it's something I can't do. The same thing goes for smoking. If you start out telling yourself that I'm a smoker, and you visualize yourself this way, and you visualize yourself as a weak person who can't handle addictions, who can't get rid of this thing that you have made your body accustomed to, and you convince yourself that this is something that you can't do, that's how you're going to act. If, on the other hand, you change that image around, and it's exactly what I did when I quit smoking as a young man, I told people, what I want you to do is smoke around me. So many other people say, oh, I don't want anybody smoking around. I have to stay away from other people who are smoking, and I have to stay away from coffee or anything that will remind me of cigarettes. I've got all of these things I can't do. What I did is I told everybody, I want to be tested. Test me any way you want to. Blow it at me, because I no longer see myself as the person who can't eliminate this thing. I don't see myself as weak in that capacity. I see myself as strong. If I see myself as strong, I will begin to act on that strength. One of the few things that the field of psychology has given us in this century is this, that the human mind, the human brain and its thinking mechanism will react to any stimuli that it is presented. Any, all right? And it takes it in as if it were a robot. It's like whatever I am stimulated by, I will begin to react to. I will react to it regardless, all right? And so if I understand that the way that I am reacting is a result of the choices I have been making to process stimuli in a certain way, then I can begin to change those.
You can use the power of visualization daily to reinforce your decision to become a smoke-free person. Spend a few quiet moments every morning and every evening. In your mind's eye, see yourself in situations where you have previously chosen to light up. See someone offering you a cigarette. Then see yourself picking up a glass of water or juice instead of a match. See yourself passing the cigarette machine without a second glance. Picture yourself being able to run up a flight of stairs without becoming breathless. Think about the situations that are most likely to present you with an opportunity for smoking. Then see yourself successfully doing something else. See yourself doing what you want to do. You might feel pressured or tense when you first try to become smoke-free. So when you have a moment, try to practice the following relaxation exercise. Now, you won't want to do this while you're driving. Wait till you're somewhere quiet and peaceful. Sit down in a chair with your legs uncrossed, your feet on the floor, and your hands in your lap. Make sure your spine is straight but relaxed. Take a deep breath through your nose with your mouth closed until your rib cage and chest are fully expanded. Hold your breath for about 10 seconds. Then exhale through your mouth. Breathe out all at once and let your chest relax abruptly with a sigh. Wait 10 seconds, then repeat the breathing pattern. Deep breathe through your nose. Hold it in for 10 seconds. Then exhale through your mouth all at once. Wait 10 more seconds. Repeat the pattern for a third time. Deep breathe through your nose. Hold it for 10 seconds. Exhale through your mouth. Usually, one cycle of this breathing pattern will help you feel more relaxed. And it should also help you keep focused on the smoke-free person you can be. Remember to do this relaxation exercise while sitting down, because it may make you feel slightly lightheaded for a few seconds. That's because you're getting an enriched supply of oxygen to your brain. When you practice this exercise, think of something you enjoy. It might be time with friends or family, the memory of a favorite vacation, or the feeling of a past accomplishment. When you're finished, pay attention to how much more relaxed you feel. It's a powerful sense of control, one you can transfer to your decision to become a smoke-free person.
The first thing about visualization, and the key to understanding it, is that you act on the image that you have consistently. Whatever it is that you're doing, this doesn't just go for ending smoking. This is true for gaining wealth. If you continually convince yourself that you're poor, that you can't make any money, that this is your lot in life, that it's because of your inheritance, because of where you happen to live, or whatever it may be, that this is something that you are stuck with, then that's how you're going to start acting. You're going to act on whatever picture you have, and you'll consistently go through life expecting not to be able to overcome that. It's true of everything. That's the first part of visualization. You act on the pictures that you have. So you go to work on the pictures, all right? The second thing is that when you visualize something, what you have to understand is that everything you visualize is already here. Where else could it be? On another planet, in another solar system, in another reality system, in another dimension? It's here. If you want to sell 5 million widgets to somebody else and you've only got 100, the 5 million widgets may not be here, but who are you going to sell them to? I mean, that's basically what you're looking at. And those 5 million people are here. Someplace they've got to be on this planet. We're not talking about selling them to Martians. They're here. All you have to do is tune in. You have to tune in to them. All right, and help them to have the same image that you have about them buying your widgets. If you want to be an ex-smoker, that person is already here. I mean, what you were going to come up with another person from another reality system? You're here already. All you have to do is begin tuning in to that person that is already here. It's not like you have to invent a new person in order for you to quit smoking. What you have to do is begin to tune in to that non-smoker. All right, so that person is already here. That's the second thing about visualization. And the third, and I think perhaps the most important thing about understanding the power of visualization, is that when you visualize something and you want it to work for you, all you have to do is continually keep that image in your head. Don't let it go away. Don't let somebody else convince you that you can't have that image. That process of imagery, of visualization, is that it's already here. You can make it happen because you understand that your behavior comes from the pictures that you have, and that picture doesn't have to go away unless you send it away. That's the power of visualization. Deficiency motivation is what a very famous man who probably had the most influence of anybody in my life talked about in his Toward a Psychology of Being and the Farther Reaches of Human Nature, a man named Abraham Maslow. Maslow said that there are two kinds of people. There are average and neurotic people, lower level people, who are deficiency motivated. They are motivated out of something being lacking. There's something missing in my life. I'm here to tell you that there's nothing missing. Everything that you are, you have chosen to be. And if you're in a relationship and you think there's something missing, there's nothing missing. Whatever's there is what you've chosen to put there. These kinds of people who are deficiency motivated are always telling themselves that when I get something else, that something else is going to make me complete. So my motivation in life comes out of having to repair deficiencies continuously in my life. I'm constantly operating from a premise that I am not complete yet. When I get this, I will be. And so they spend their lives in this disease called more, always trying to get something else, always trying to accumulate something else in order that they can be complete. But there's a second category of people that Maslow talked about that he called self-actualizers, that in The Sky's the Limit I call no-limit people. No-limit people, or self-actualizers, are growth motivated rather than deficiency motivated. They are saying that where I am is exactly where I'm supposed to be. It's where I've chosen to be. I am the result of all the choices I've made in my life up until this moment, and there's nothing missing. There's nothing lacking, and I don't need anything else to be complete. I'm not going to get it all. I am it all already. But I can grow. I don't have to get better. I don't have to repair anything. I don't have to get something. I can constantly be growing. If you look at the sky the next time you walk outside, and you see the sky, and you look at the clouds, and you look at the formations that are up there, and you say, is the sky perfect? You would say, well, it's the only sky we have. What else could it be? Of course it's perfect. If you look at it an hour later, you'll see that the formations are different, and that it may be black over here and blue over here or whatever. Different, but still perfect. Different, but still perfect. That's how we assess all things in life until we come to ourselves. And then we begin to tell ourselves that I could never be perfect. I must always be lacking unless I have this, and I'll try to get that, and then I'll always be looking for something else. When it comes to quitting smoking or eliminating any addiction, a deficiency-motivated person is going to say that I will not be complete until I get this habit out of my system. I'm here to tell you that you're already complete and perfect just where you are as a smoker, but that you can grow and be different and still perfect. And that you don't have to come up with any technique. You don't have to get any fancy little products that you spray on your fingers so that you don't, or you go to some clinic and have them hypnotize you or anything like that in order for you to become this growing, motivated human being. All you have to do is see yourself as already there. Visualize yourself the way you want to be, act on that image, and stop telling yourself that unless I get this thing fixed, I'm still incomplete as a person.
Seeing yourself as smoke-free is one of the tools you can use to kick the cigarette habit. This brings us to step 6 in the 9-step program to stop smoking. It's realizing you're a human being, not a human doing. Wayne explains how you can do this if you just change your way of thinking.
I am sitting here right now, and I can tell you with all honesty, without exaggerating one bit, that I have run a minimum of 8 miles every day, and I'm in my 12th year without missing one day, ever without missing one day, which means that I have had to have a body that is fit enough each day for the past 12 years to at least get up and go out and run 8 miles. Now, some people would call this an addiction. Some people would call this obsessive. Some people would call it a whole lot of things. And it doesn't matter what you call it, because I am no longer someone who runs. I am running. Running is me. Being healthy is what I am. And it would be impossible for me to think of myself not going out and doing something physically fit to keep myself healthy now, whereas at a previous time in my life, it was something that I had to work at. I had to struggle. I had to figure out, all right, I got to go out and do this thing. And it was like inside of me, I was punishing myself. Now when I do something, it's consistent with who I am. It's what I call a psychology of being rather than a psychology of doing. It's understanding that you're a human being. You're not a human doing. And that when you take a cigarette and you take a puff of it and then you inhale it and you take that poison, it is not something you're doing. It is something that you are. It's a reflection of who you are. That nicotine, that poisonous substance, is part of your heart. It's part of your pancreas. It's part of your lungs. It's part of your legs. It's your toenails. It's your eyeballs. It's everything that you are. It is you. When you no longer want to be it, and it no longer is how you see yourself, then eliminating it will be just like saying, I am now health. And when you are health, when you are the treatment, when you are healing, rather than the poison and all those things that you're doing, it becomes an automatic way of treating yourself.
If you treat yourself as a smoker, chances are you'll stay that way. And that could have serious disadvantages for you and the people around you. It's no secret that cigarette smoking can cause problems for the person who lights up. But it can also be bad for people in the vicinity of the smoker. These are the involuntary smokers, the people exposed to smoke from others. The Surgeon General has concluded that passive smoking, as it's also called, can lead to disease, including lung cancer, in non-smokers. Children of smoking parents show an increased incidence of respiratory infections. And numerous studies have shown that non-smoking women exposed to their husband's cigarette smoke have an increased chance of getting lung cancer.
There are a lot of parables. And one of my very favorite little parables is the story of two cats. And it really illustrates this whole business of what it takes to be a non-smoker. See, there's an old cat, and he's out in the alley, and he's looking around for food the way he has done for 13 or 14 years. And he comes across this little kitten. The kitten is doing what you see little kittens do a lot, chasing its tail. Chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing and going around in a circle. The old cat stops him and says, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" Little kitten said, "Oh, I'm chasing my tail." He said, "I've discovered the secret of success and happiness in life." The old cat said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I went to cat philosophy school. Just got back. Learned two things that are important for a cat. One is that the most important thing for a cat is happiness. Two, that happiness is located in my tail. So what I'm doing is chasing after my tail. And when I get it, and get a firm grip on it, and hold it in my mouth, I'll have an eternal lock on happiness. The old cat looked at him and said, you know, I really didn't have the opportunities you've had. I didn't get to go to cat philosophy school. It's funny, because I've been out here in the alleys all my life. He said, but I've learned basically the same thing that you've learned. Is I've learned that the most important thing in the world for a cat is happiness. And two, that indeed it's located in my tail. He said, I guess the only difference between you and I is I found that when I go about my business and live my life the way I choose to, it follows after me wherever I go. And that parable of going about your life and doing the things that are relevant and important to you and letting success, happiness, chase after you is really almost the exact opposite of how we approach things in Western civilization. We tend to believe that we've got to accumulate, we've got to get stuff, we have to be setting goals, we have to be always chasing after something, and that we don't have enough of what... You see, if you're a person who believes that in order for you to be happy, you've got to get someplace else. That is, you've got to get rid of this addiction, or you've got to get some more money, or you've got to get into a better relationship, or you've got to become a vice president, or you've got to get a bigger house or a bigger car, or whatever it is. If you think that happiness is something that's going to come to you as a result of these things, here's where you are in your life. What you're saying, what you're really saying is that where I am is insufficient or incomplete. And where I want to be is what's going to give it to me. But I say to you that if you can't love and celebrate and value who you are right now, in this moment, for all the choices that you've made up until now, you don't need anything else. Because all you'll do is be in a place to not appreciate and value and celebrate another place that you are in your life. You'll never arrive. You'll always be striving. You'll always be stuck on striving. The parable of the cat and the kitten illustrates the point that happiness and success are inner processes. They are something that you bring to life, not something you get out of life. I am more convinced of this than anything, that we're not here to get anything. We are all here to give, just to give. And that you don't need anything in order to be able to give. And that everything that does come your way is an opportunity for you to give more.
You have an opportunity to become smoke-free every day. All you have to do is decide to use it. And these opportunities present themselves in all environments, at home, at work, and at play. We'll examine ways to make the most of these opportunities in our next session. As we've already said, cigarette smoking hurts more than just the smoker. It affects the health of the people around the smoker. It can hurt us in our workplaces, and it can have a negative impact on the economy of the United States in general. But there's something we can all do about it, from where we live to where we work. This is step 7 in our 9-step program to stop smoking. It's this: taking a stand for a healthy environment.
I speak for corporate America, the corporate world, really, all the time, in many, many capacities on motivation, self-development, transformation, improving the quality of your life. And I see it as a major objective of chief executive officers The statistics I can't even begin to haul out, but they're enormous in terms of how much work time is lost and how many key executives are lost and so on as a result of smoke-related diseases and processes. But I'm finding as I go across the country that more and more people in the corporate structure are beginning to see the importance of helping to create not just a smoke-free environment, but a smoke-free inner environment within the human beings that they are working with. That is, people who must rely upon something outside of themselves in order to get through their days as a result of, quote, pressure or tension that is a part of being in this corporate structure, is really a reflection of an inability to look within and to see that I really don't need this kind of a thing. And if you're the kind of a person, or you're running an organization of people who are constantly saying, hey, I have this demon that has got a hold of me and I can't do anything about it, it's really a reflection on the entire corporate structure, and people are beginning to see that. More and more, my daughter, I have a daughter who's 20, and she tells me that it's now, in her age group up in school, it's now more the exception to see a smoker. And a lot of times that we're sitting around in a room and somebody will light up a cigarette and everybody will look at them and go, whew, what's your problem? Why are you having to do? It's like you're sending a signal out that I'm really not in charge of myself. You send the same signal out if you're 50, 60, 70 pounds overweight. You're sending a signal that I don't have it all together somehow. And why send that kind of a signal out? Not only in the corporate world, but in your family. I mean, why send a signal to your children and your loved ones that you don't have it all together? Why not send a signal that you do have it all together?
More and more people are sending out the signal that they prefer to be smoke-free. But there is still work to be done. The Surgeon General indicates that many young people who experiment with cigarettes don't want to keep using them as they get older. But this addiction almost always begins during childhood or early adolescence. So children and young people need to be warned early and often about the dangers of using nicotine. The Surgeon General goes on to say, most adults view illegal drugs with scorn. They express disapproval, if not outrage, in their sale and use. The nation has mobilized enormous resources to wage a war on drugs, illicit drugs. He says that we should also give priority to the one addiction that's killing more than 300,000 Americans each year. In the face of overwhelming evidence that tobacco is addicting, policymakers should address this question without delay. To achieve our goal of a smoke-free society, we must give this problem the serious attention it deserves. Studies show a smoker costs his or her employer thousands of dollars a year in lost time, medical benefits, and reduced productivity.
How smoking affects productivity is so obvious. In the neighborhood of 500,000 deaths in this country alone are attributed to smoking. The numbers of lost hours on the job are endless. It just absolutely boggles my mind. I mean, if there was any other product that was out there that was killing 500,000 people a year. I mean, in the asbestos industry, I think it's like 150 people or something have died. And we are all up in arms and having lawsuits and just unbelievable upsetness in government over asbestos, which of course we ought to do something, or lead or in paint or whatever. 6 deaths in 3 years. We got 500,000 people dying, and we've got a government, think about this, we've got a government on one hand that requires manufacturers to put a warning on every pack of cigarettes, labeling them as dangerous to your health, which really means you're gonna die. And we got the same government subsidizing the industry that is growing the stuff that requires them to put on here that we're going to require people to put these warning labels on. I mean, we talk out of both sides of our mouth when it comes to this thing. And if we as a people
began to realize that this is a poisonous, life-shortening thing that we are doing to young people over and over again, and all the ads and all the ways that we are subsidizing this, telling people that on one hand it's bad for you, on the other hand subsidizing it. The effect of that on just me as a human being, I'm outraged that the people that I elect and represent me as a human being in supposedly the most advanced country in the world would be subsidizing something that contributes to 500,000 deaths a year. The productivity is not the issue. It's immoral to be behaving this way, to be encouraging our young people. I have 6 beautiful children. I resent my government subsidizing an industry that might in fact help to convince one of them to make an inappropriate choice to shorten those beautiful lives of theirs. I'm outraged at it. And think about it. I mean, what can you own? What can you really own? I have a suit hanging in my closet that I took a razor to years ago. I took all the pockets off of the suit, and it hangs there in my closet. And every time I walk in, the kids look and say, "Oh, there's Daddy's suit." And it has no pockets in it, because it reminds me every day that the last suit you wear doesn't need any pockets. You can't take anything with you. And it's like you're here for a speck of time, just this much time. 70, 80, 90 years, it's a wink when you think of eternity. You can't own anything. Ever. You can't own anything. You're here to give. If you're a person who's treating yourself in a poisonous way, in any capacity, whether it's related to your health, to your happiness, whether it's related to your smoking, or your caffeine intake, or how much salt you eat, or how fat you are, if you're a person who is believing that you are not valuable, then that's what you have to give away. And your behaviors are reflecting what you have to give away. You start treating yourself lovingly, valuing yourself, and you'll see negative addictions being eliminated from your life, because that isn't what you want to give away. You're here to give. And if you're smoking, you got poison to give. You somehow are reflecting a contempt for this beautiful, perfect creation that you are by poisoning it on a regular basis. And you're giving away poison. You start treating yourself as a valuable person who brings success to everything instead of trying to get it out of anything. And you'll find eliminating smoking just one more step about visualization. The first is that
we act upon the pictures that we have in our head. The second is that everything we visualize is already here. So the non-smoker is here already. All you have to do is tune into that person. And the third, and really dramatically important, is to understand what I think of as one of the simplest secrets to fulfilling yourself in anything that you want in your life. See, a lot of people believe that in order to quit smoking or to achieve something really dramatic and magnificent in their lives, they have to be persistent. They have to be determined. They have to have a real sense of commitment to it. I don't like those terms. Determination and drive, because we're all paradoxes. I mean, I am a very determined soul in many ways, and in many ways I'm very lazy. I'm a very loving person, and in many ways I'm not that way all the time. I'm very shy, and I'm also very assertive. I mean, we are bundles of paradoxes, all of us, all right? And every one of us will use the label, I am determined. I am really a persevering person. It's meaningless. It's just a label that you apply to yourself that really you can't get your finger on what it means to be a persistent person. If you say you want to go out and sell something and you say you've written a book I can relate to, and you say, well, I sent it to 5 publishers. And they sent it back, and I sent it to 5 more, and they all send no, and I sent it to 5 more. That's 15. But now, I sent 15 letters out, and I made all these phone calls, and I tried everything. I would call that being persistent, and I still didn't have any success. You see, you can cut that off at 3 letters if you want to. You can cut it off after you've not smoked for 2 hours or 2 days or whatever. You can say, I've really been persistent. I'm really persevered. I was really determined, and I'm still a smoker. So it's like it doesn't make any difference what label you attach to yourself. The third key to effective use of visualization in your life is to understand that being persistent and determined are irrelevant. What you have to be is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve your objective. Let me re-emphasize that. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes to achieve your objective. That has nothing to do with being persevering. If it only takes just a simple little statement inside of my head, I think I'll just give up cigarettes, you throw them all away, and that's it. That's all you have to do. If, on the other hand, you're a person who has to be continuously reminding yourself, you have to put this tape into your machine 40 times a day, whatever it is that you have to do to achieve your objective, you have to be willing to do it. That's the key to every successful human being on this planet. It is that they have been willing to do what it takes, and not use a phony label like I'm a real persistent, persevering person, because you can make that label apply to just about anything. How willing are you to do what it takes in the present moment? That determines everything.
To become smoke-free, you have to be willing to forego cigarettes completely. Studies show the critical period for success is the first 2 to 3 months after stopping. You have to be willing to do what it takes during that time if you're to remain smoke-free.
A long time ago, when I wrote a book that I believed in, and I tried everything to get it published, and I finally did. And then I found out that I don't have any advertising budget. I've got $375 from a publisher to spend any way I want to. And that includes all travel expenses to go out and make this book into a bestseller. So I, at that point in my life, as a man in my mid-30s, was willing to do what it took at that time. And it wasn't like I had to struggle. It wasn't like it was some difficult decision that I had to make. This is what I believed in. This is what I loved, what I wanted to do. And I was willing to do it. Willing to go in and tell the dean at a major university where I was about to have tenure that I am resigning? Yes, if that's what it takes. Willing to go out and talk to everybody in this country and every city and sleep in the back seat of my car and pay for all the expenses myself and hire somebody as a publicist to do it all for me, because I was told over and over again that the only way that you can talk to everybody in America is to get on all of the fancy Tonight shows and the Donahue shows and the Today Show and the Tomorrow Show and all of that. But nobody wanted me because nobody had ever heard of this person. There's another way to reach everybody in America. It's easier to get on the network television shows, I must admit, because you just get on and everybody's watching, and that's the easy way. There's something missing there when they don't want you. When you call that show over and over again, they say, Wayne who? Then there's another way to do it, and that is you got to go to everybody in America. Are you willing to do it? It's going to take 2 years, and you're going to have to quit your job and your practice, and you're going to have to take your family out on the road, and you're going to have to spend a lot of time alone, and you're going to have to invest some of your own money, and you're going to have to go out there and do every little dinky radio and television show across the country in order to reach everybody. Are you willing to do it? The answer for me was an enthusiastic, exciting, absolutely yes. And had the time of my life doing it, advancing confidently in the direction of my own dreams, endeavoring to live the life which I had imagined. And success, it just creeps right into your house and creeps right into your consciousness as a result of going out there and doing and believing what you want to. The same principle applies right here. Are you willing? For some people, quitting smoking is the easiest thing in the world. I must admit that for me, it wasn't very difficult. I just absolutely didn't see it as a difficult process, something that I was going to have a lot of trouble with. For my brother, who just quit 2 years ago, he snuck up on it for 20 years. And he finally has mastered it and is smoke-free for 3 years. And for him, it took, at the age of 48, getting married and having a son, his first child, at the age of 48, saying, I don't want my son to have to grow up in an environment of poison. That's what it took for him. Didn't take that from me. For me, it was a simple thing that I realized I had made the choice. So each person has their own level of difficulty in overcoming an addiction. And I'm not here telling you that your level is any less difficult or more difficult than mine. That's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to say to you is that if you visualize yourself, see yourself as health, all right? And understand that about yourself. And understand that the person you want to be is already here, not someplace else. And stop telling yourself that you have to be full of determination and perseverance. Instead say, am I willing to do what it takes? And that's the key to all success in life.
Another key to success is learning to follow your own voice. This is our final step in the 9 steps to stop smoking. Step 9, becoming an inner-directed person.
One of the comedians that I heard recently was talking about being a smoker, and she said, whenever anybody criticizes her, she says back to them, is that any way to treat somebody who's dying? It's a funny joke, but if it's you and it's your life, it's not really so funny. A person who is continuously having to rely upon something outside of themselves really says, I'm not in charge of me, this thing is. And so therefore any addiction that controls me is something I haven't been able to master. Self-esteem is affected by it dramatically. People who find that something's got a hold of them, something that they can't get rid of, something that they've had for a long time and they know they don't like it about themselves, but they want to get rid of it. That thing, that demon, is really telling, it's a self-picture, it's a self-portrait, it's a portrait of someone who is saying, I can't control me, this thing does. So anytime you are externally oriented or externally motivated by something outside of yourself which controls you, that something is really in charge of you, and in that sense you're a prisoner. But you're a prisoner, here's the metaphor I think of. I think of a prisoner who's being controlled by someone else, and there's these bars, okay? Just try to imagine some bars right here in front of me. And you're standing there, and you're saying, let me out, let me out, let me out. You're screaming. But in back and to the sides, it's all open space. And all you have to do is let go of the bars and turn around and walk over this way and walk out, and you're no longer a prisoner. It's like that prison is self-imposed. And that metaphor of the person saying, let me out, who can only look straight ahead and doesn't look around to all the open space, is really what somebody who's addicted to tobacco is really saying. Let me out, let me. They have this tunnel vision that this thing controls me, and they've never considered that all they have to do is let go. Make a declaration that I'm a non-smoker. Live in the present moment. Visualize yourself as health rather than as poison. And be willing to do what it takes in every given moment of your life. And you'll feel so positive about yourself.
We'll continue discussing Step 9 in our next segment of Control from Within. And we'll look at how you can apply it to become smoke-free. More and more people are able to listen to their inner voice about becoming smoke-free. But there is still reason for concern. Despite the increasing numbers of people choosing to become smoke-free, the Surgeon General's report points out some disturbing facts. It says smoking is more common among poor, less educated people than in higher socioeconomic groups. Dr. Koop writes, the prevalence of smoking in 1985 among persons without a high school diploma was 35.4%, compared with 16.5% among persons with a postgraduate college education.
Being an inner-directed person is really what I'm talking about, rather than being an ex-smoker or a non-smoker. Controls from within, rather than from without. Enlightenment, transformation, spirituality, the higher places, self-actualization, the highest places you can get to as a human being, all revolve around the same theme, endlessly around the same theme. Controls from within, inner direction. I make the choices. I run my life. I'm in charge of me. You go to an old age home, and we found simple little studies. We look at these old people who we think are towards the end of their life, and we watch how we treat them. And we feed them at a certain time, and we tell them what they're going to eat. And we arrange the furniture in their room in a certain way. And we put all the beds in a certain way so that it's most convenient for the cleaning staff to come in and clean. And we arrange this entire imaginary scene of all of these people in this old age home, and everything is controlled by someone else. The cook, the janitors, the administration, everything is being controlled for them. And then we take another home, and we say to the people, this is where you live. You have control. What do you want to eat? You eat whatever time you want. You want your bed to face this way, face it that way. You want your lamp over here, and you want to put a little Santa Claus on it, go right ahead. You control your destiny. And then you study people in an old age home where everything is controlled for them, and people in an old age home where people control everything for themselves, and you see who lives the longest. I don't even have to give you the final tabulation. That when we allow people who are supposedly dying to have control of their life, they live much longer and a much more fulfilling, positive life. Cigarettes are the same as running the old age home for the janitor or the convenience of the administrative staff. It is something that is running your life, that is outside of you, that makes you a prisoner to it. Try to imagine yourself being in prison, having shackles on your legs, and being confined continuously and told every day what time you have to do something, how you're going to do it, what color it's going to be, what flavor it's going to be, all being decided by something outside of you. That's the power you've given to cigarettes. They control, I have this urge, I have to go get it, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to have them. And all of those things, when you give them up, when you leave that prison and you walk out, try to imagine how great you feel when the controls are from within. So you, who wants to leave that prison and have control of your own life, the rewards? Of course, a longer life. Of course, a better feeling about yourself. Of course, a more exciting feeling about the power of you as a perfect creation in charge of yourself. And in every aspect of the study of humanity, when people are given control of their life, they are more fulfilled, more productive, more creative, happier, more giving, more contributing human beings. That's all you'll get. It's an awful lot. Controls from within rather than from without.
While many people start smoking because they're experimenting or bowing to peer pressure, they often keep smoking because of the daily demands of job and family. Wayne Dyer's philosophies have helped millions of people change their lives for the better. In the next part of our program, we'll examine some of his techniques for transforming your life. This, in turn, could transform your perceived need to smoke.
There's a great little thing about worry. There ain't no sense in worrying about the things you got control over. Because if you got control over them, there ain't no sense worrying about it. Now that only leaves 50% of the rest of the stuff. Let's deal with that. There ain't no sense in worrying about the things you don't have control over. Because if you don't have control over them, there ain't no sense worrying about it. Now you've dealt with everything that you ever had to worry about. So it makes worrying about anything pretty silly, doesn't it? Pretty silly. So what I want to do is alleviate the worry about the things you got no control over. And to understand that you have control over a lot more than you ever dreamt you had control over in your life when you become enlightened. And what is enlightenment? Read the Bhagavad Gita, one of the most ancient books on our planet. You know what it says about enlightenment? Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. That's it. That's it. You're not going to change too much about what you do, but you're going to be so thrilled at chopping wood and carrying water. I mean, you're going to go, wow, what is this water? Whoa, you're going to love the water and the wood, and you're going to be so grateful for being here to chop it. But you're still going to chop wood and carry water, whether you're enlightened or not. So you might as well get to the enlightenment part of it and enjoy it all right? Because a big part of what I really firmly believe is that you will never be enlightened. You will never get to the highest level, whatever you want to call it. Self-actualization, Maslow called it. I call it no-limit living, and the sky's the limit. Inner-directedness, what Reisman called it. Call it what you want. You don't get to the top in that area of your life unless you're doing what you love and loving what you do. You've got to be in harmony. You will not be there. And it's a simple thing. And what I want to do is take some of these principles that I have been studying for years, and especially the last 2, and particularly the last 6 months. I've been totally involved in it, completely involved. Reading it all, Eastern and Western, whoever they are, and how they all apply in your life. And one of the reflections of one of them is you've got to do what you love in order to have abundance in your life. And it doesn't mean quitting your job. You still got to chop wood and carry water. Or it might mean that. But whatever it means, you change around how you conceive of it. But before we do that, we got to get to this. What is this? What is this form? And what does it mean to be a human being See, if you were supposed to be a human doing, you know, I mean, that's what you'd have been called. We'd have come up with that over the years. We'd have said, well, you can't talk to me. I am a human doing, and you have no right to talk to me like that. But you see, that never happened, all right? And it didn't happen for a reason, because you are a being. You're not a doing, all right? And it is that part of you that I want to address. You have to understand that you have to be able to stand in back of yourself and watch your form, which is the package that houses you. And 99% of who you are is not the package. It's the thought. And then you understand that you are divine enough to ask and important enough to receive. You are divine enough because you are connected, not through form, but through whatever it is that means to go beyond form. What is the prefix that means to go beyond form? What is it? We've got it in our language. We have to stay with language. The prefix that means to go beyond in our language is trans. To go beyond, to go past, to go above, transform. And the connector, along with the suffix that means the experience or the result of, is shun in our language. Translation, the experience or result of going beyond one's form. Transformation. The ability to go beyond your form and to know that that is not you. You can't age a thought. You can't store a thought. You are thought. So now what we've established is that everything that's ever happened to you up until this moment is all thought. Okay? Now we're going to leave the microscope. We're going to the telescope. What I want you to do is imagine everything that's ever going to happen to you from this moment until you leave your form. And tell me, what dimension is that in? It's all thought, isn't it? The past is all thought. The future's all thought. Okay? Now all we have left is now. All right? The working unit of your life. Now, let's try to get a hold of that. Here's one. Whoop, oh, here it is. Whoop, oh, here it is. Ah, damn, there's not even a now. As soon as you get a hold of it, you're in another one, aren't you? There's not even a now. Even the now is all thought. Everybody you know, everything you've ever done, everything you ever will do, it's all thought for you. And you're concerned about whether you're going to get a wrinkle? Can you wrinkle a thought? Can you age a thought?
As you've heard before, circumstances do not make a man. They reveal him. And if you think you have to smoke to cope with your circumstances, use that as an opportunity to explore your abilities.
Circumstances do not make a man. They reveal him. Boy, is that a lot of truth. And you know, a lot of people will think, yeah, but what about these poor people here? Yeah, circumstances reveal you. You got to get that. You got to know that in order to get to the point to forgive, that you have to have blamed. You really don't have anything to forgive. Forgiveness is really an empty thing. There's nothing to forgive. If you didn't blame, you wouldn't have anybody to forgive. So what you do is get past blame, and the way you get past that is to forgive people. And what you do then is forgive yourself for having blamed. And once you do that, then you don't blame anymore. You take responsibility for everything. How come when I go through the poorest neighborhoods, the poorest, where the unemployment rate is the absolute highest in the state of Florida, in a neighborhood 2 miles from where I live, 2 miles, and you see the sloppiest lawns any place in the state of Florida, and more trash on the front lawns than any place. How come? When the unemployment is so high. I mean, I would think it'd be the other way around. These are people who got nothing else to do all day long. They're not working. And they they got trash all over their lawns. I'm working my tail end off all 24 hours a day, and there's not a piece of trash on my lawn. How do you account for that? Circumstances do not make a man. They reveal him. You got to really get that. Now, if you've got scarcity in your life, you have to understand that what you think about expands. This is really important. If you can understand that whatever is missing in your life is what you think about all the time. If you think about all the things that are missing in your life and you wonder why they keep expanding, it's because you're thinking about them all the time and you're acting on that scarcity consciousness. And that people who have enough, even though they don't have as much as you, don't ever think about what they don't have. They think about what they do have. If a guy with a scarcity consciousness has $100 in his pocket and $500 in debt, he's focusing on the debt. He's always focused on what's missing and what I got to pay and what I got. The other guy with a prosperity consciousness is thinking about the $100 he's got. I got $100. And is going to invest it or do something with it, and is focused on that. And that, what he has here, will expand. And if you focus on your debt, then that will expand. And in your relationships, if you focus on what's missing in the person that you're in a relationship with, then that's what's going to expand. You're going to keep seeing it over and over again. You're going to say, you know, I'm in a relationship. And you say, oh, yeah, you're in a relationship? Oh, well, me too. I'm in a relationship too. Yeah, well, we got problems. Oh, yeah, you got problems? Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, we got problems too. You got problems? Yeah. I'm in a relationship and we got problems, so there must be something wrong. Something wrong. Because you got problems in a relationship. So now you're focused on what's wrong. So now you got to call in a consultant to come in and help you with your relationship, but you can't afford it, so you can only call on yourself. But who are you going to call in? You got to call in somebody who's already wrong. So now you're calling in a disabled person to work on your relationship. What's the problem in your relationship? Well, she always whines, and then I always talk back to her real angry, and then she whines. Imagine calling in a consultant and being able to afford it, and the consultant walks in and says, well, how come you always talk like that, and you're always doing that to him? You say, wait a minute, you're disabled. You can't help us. You wouldn't call on somebody that was wrong in order to work on the things that were missing in your relationship, would you? You want to know why? Because nothing is missing. How could it be missing? What's missing? There's nothing missing. She is just the way she is. And if you've got problems, that's exactly the way it is. That's perfect. You're supposed to. There's nothing wrong with that. She's the way she is. You're the way you are. Stop making her wrong, and I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to look at what she is. It's like in the whole book that I wrote on raising children, and what do you really want for your children? The whole emphasis of it is find them doing things right. You want your kids to be troublemakers, catch them doing things wrong, and that will expand. You always focus on what's missing. There's a little girl in our neighborhood who comes over, and she's got her 2 fingers in her mouth all the time. And her father, every time she puts her hands in her mouth, he tells her to take her hands out of her mouth. So he's constantly thinking about this thing that she's doing that he doesn't like. And whenever she comes to our house, I say, Margot, fantastic, you don't have your fingers in your mouth. And she does. And whenever she sees me, she's always taking her fingers out of her mouth. When she sees her father, she's putting them in because that's what he expects. And her mother will come to pick her up, and I'll say, guess what, Debbie? Margot didn't have her fingers in her mouth for 3 hours today. Isn't that terrific? And she looks so proud, and she looks so happy. And then her father gets in the car and he's like, damn it, I told you, take your fingers out of your mouth. He's always catching her doing things wrong. What you think about expands. So all the things that are missing in your life that you don't like, all the problems, all the lack of money, all the lack of whatever it is that you think you would like to have, that is expanding because that's what you think about. And if you want abundance in your life, then focus on everything you have and be really, really grateful for anything that you have. And understand that you can't own anything anyway. You just get a little lease on it. Is that helpful? Every time I start thinking about what my wife should be like, then she continues to be the way she shouldn't be. But whenever I remind myself of how great she is and how wonderful she is and how much I love her and I'm so thankful that she's in my life and she's just such a light, So I don't want to focus on that, what's missing, ever. I don't want to focus on it. I want to focus on what is there and let that expand. And it will expand because of what I just said about visualization, right? You act upon what you think about. And your feelings come from what you think about. Feelings come from thoughts. They're the physical reaction to thoughts. So if you've got a lot of unhappy feelings, you got to look at the thoughts that back them up and start expanding in your universe, in your one song, what you want to expand, not what is scarce. Get off of scarcity thoughts unless you want them to continue to expand. And that's the whole basis on abundance. It's so easy to get. It all works perfectly. It all works perfectly when you get your thoughts on what you have rather than what's missing.
Like any addiction, smoking is a symptom of a lifestyle that needs changing. If you stop smoking, you eliminate the symptom, but its cause remains. In order to be healthy physically and emotionally, you must change the way you live on a broader scale. In the first part of this program, Wayne dealt with this and how it specifically relates to smoking. In the following segments of the program, Wayne will show you how to live a better life in general. While this philosophy doesn't speak directly to smoking, it refers to those needs we all have to improve at least some part of our lives. First, we'll examine the importance of the way you choose to think about things and how that impacts the quality of your life.
You have to think of a thought as an energy outside of you that you tune into that goes endlessly, so that every thought that ever was is out there. And all you have to do is tune into it. And every thought that anyone ever had is out there. And the transformed person is the one who can go beyond their form and really understand that. And so the universe, when you think like that, you think of it as ending, you have to then try to imagine, how could it end? I mean, what's the end? What's the end of the universe? Would somebody explain what that is? I mean, in a linear sense, is there a wall there? Or is there a cliff there? Or what is it? What do you think is there? If you go look out there into the sky, and it's like, where do you think it ends? This is a big place. 1 billion stars for every grain of sand. That's not so hard to figure when it's endless. And take a look at this word that we throw around as if it were something that we just all know what it means. Translation: one song. Universe. One song. Each of us are a note in this symphony, but it's all one. So abundance is the universe's response to any belief that you have in scarcity. Now, one of the laws of the universe, the one song, is that what you think about expands. Okay? And that you have to allow whatever it is that you are and want in life to flow unimpeded. The unimpeded flowing, in combination with the oneness of it all, creates abundance. And when you think about something, you're using thought. That thought is energy. And it must flow unimpeded, unattached, detached, if you will. And why does what you think about expand? I mean, it's just not, you just don't believe it because I'm saying that. Why does what you think about expand? Well, what you think about is what we call visualization, or imagery, thought, whatever it is, all right? And imagery or visualization is a process in the world of the formless thought, the same as practice is in the world of the form, in the realm of form. When you judge another human being, understand that you do not define them. They're already defined. You define yourself. Your judgment is a definition of you. That's your need to put somebody else into a separate place other than you. You define yourself every time you judge somebody else. They're just who they are on their own path. If you can only have love inside of you because that's all you think, and that's all you have to give away with no conditions attached to it, then you'll love those who are different, and even those who want to do you harm. Look under the microscope, or look in the telescope. Which has the grander view? They both go to infinity. The microscope, the telescope. All of the examination that you do of yourself is operating in this absolutely perfect principle of harmony and cooperation. It all works. How much life form do you think it takes to keep you alive? You ever read a book called Life on Man? It's a wonderful book. It talks about all the different bacteria that are in your eyelids, that are in the lining of your stomach. Some of them have teeth. They have claws. They've never even seen each other. Do you understand, my friends, that you, yourself, this self-contained unit that you are, works within a set of principles that you just have to allow to work in order for you to function perfectly? You never beat your heart. You never digest your food. You don't do any of that. You're not busy beating your heart all day, and it beats, what, 30, 40,000 times a day? Whatever it is. You don't go wake up and say, oh, got to beat my heart again all day. Here we go. It's just beating, isn't it? Huh? And you got these life forms over here, and 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 you've got trillions of them. You are such a conglomeration of I that is, and until I had that insight, I didn't understand what unity meant. I am myself an I that is we. I am comprised of all kinds of different life, and yet at the very same moment, I am an individual, separate and unique on this planet. At the very same moment. F. Scott Fitzgerald, a great American novelist, said, the height of intelligence, you cannot have higher intelligence until you are able to have two contrasting beliefs within yourself at the very same moment. You've got to understand that everything is hopeless and there is hope at the very same moment. You've got to understand that you, the paradox of you as an I, a separate entity, and a huge collection of stuff, of life. And you need every single bit of it, don't you? Try to get rid of that colony of bugs with the teeth on the inside of the lining of your stomach and see how long you stay alive. All of the life forms that are you, that constitute your human beingness, as long as they have a reference to the whole that is you, are working in harmony to keep you alive. Now you gotta take the big leap. Now you gotta leap with me. You gotta just leap. And you've gotta stop looking at the microscope and shift. You've gotta see humanity as one big whole. 6 billion of us on this planet now. 6 billion of us. One being called human being that you showed up in. It already had a thrust. It already had a personality. It already had a history. History is almost exclusively one of separation and detachment, attachment. Attachment to the belief that we're all separate. You showed up in this. This is what you showed up in. If you can make this shift, the rest will be so simple for you. You know when it happened for me? I was running one day. This wasn't too long ago. And I always had a problem with this, I'm connected to other people, because, you know, the connection is invisible. We have trouble with what we can't see, don't we? What we can't get a hold of. And here I am talking, and you're hearing. I'm saying something, and you're hearing. What is it that is connected between you and me to make what I say available to you when there's no wires here? There's no strings. There are some connections that we accept as invisible. I'm running along one day, and all of a sudden there's a car. It was the day after Christmas, and some kid got one of those remote control cars, you know, and he's in his kitchen window, and he's going after Dyer, okay, today. He sees me running by there every day, and I know his mind, all right? I know this kid. He's like I was at that age. I've been doing the same thing. And he's saying, I can't wait till Dyer goes by today, you know? And I'm out there running, all of a sudden this car goes, he's been practicing, and it's like, what is this thing? It was half dark out there. I couldn't see what it was. And it's like I had more trouble believing that. Now, if there had been a long wire attached to that car, and he was back there in his kitchen, I wouldn't be having so much trouble with that. But he just pressing a button. He presses it here. Something's in the air between that and this, and it's making this thing go and do all these kinds of things. So there's like, and you sit in your living room, and you don't even have any problem with going, 4, 10, Olympics, don't want to watch the commercial, you know, and there's nothing between you and there. You're just pressing, and it's like, whatever it is, it's just, and you walk in front of it, and it stops it, you know, and you say to your kids things like, imagine 20 years ago saying this to your kid, will you stop walking in front of me? I can't change the television. You know, you're blocking whatever the hell that is that's between here and there. I don't know what it is, but there's something in there, and you're blocking it, so stop. And they be like this, and all of a sudden the TV goes on. You go, wow, what was that? What's that connection? There's a connection, all right? So there are some connections, but as they get more bizarre, more into the thought realm, it's like when you have the same thought as somebody else, and it comes out at the exact same time. You go to say something, and they say something at the same time. You go, oh, now that's just impossible. That's just such a coincidence. I just can't believe it. You were saying it, and I said it at the very same time. Why not? Especially when you know that thoughts aren't stored inside. How are you going to store a thought inside? If it's not inside, something's got to tell you that if it's not inside, it's where? It's outside. It's outside of you. Somehow, it's out there. In some way. And so, here I am running one day, and I said, when did this realization hit me? And I'm watching, there's a man running ahead of me, and he's 30 yards ahead of me. And he's synchronized with me. And he doesn't even know I'm there. Each step that I am going like this, he's doing the same thing. And he's 30 yards away. And boom, boom, this stunning realization, it really hit me that I was connected to this person in some way. And that he is no further away from me than the life form that is in my pancreas is from the one in my eye. They've never even seen each other. They've never been introduced to each other. They're of a totally different species, and yet they're still part of a whole, aren't they? And they're that far apart. So I myself am this thing that is filled with life, that is all connected, yet never seen each other. Why do I find it so difficult to see myself as connected to someone who's just as far away? I mean, in a body, with a microscopic thing this big, 30 yards is no big deal. Neither is 3,000 miles. You know, it's nothing. That's like a tiny little piece of space compared to something that is a trillionth of an inch large, having to go 200 yards, you know, through all of the winding things in your stomach. You know? So you're an I that is we. Now, it may not sound like much. It may just sound like a lot of philosophy. But it brings you home to how we are all connected. and that it's not such an impossibility, is it? Now let's just assume that the body called humanity, and it has 6 billion cells. And it has, we'll just say this, even though we're not sure what the numbers are. What's the difference when you get into trillions, right? So let's just make an assumption here now. Let's try to draw a parallel between you as an I that is we and humanity as one. And you have to be one cell in a body called humanity and one body with 6 billion cells. You have to be willing to be both. And everything that has form has that within it. You've got to have a reference to the whole in order to be functioning within this body called Wayne, or called Sally, or called Marge, or called Phil, or whatever it is that you have labeled your package. All right? So now you get a cell inside this body that doesn't have harmony within it. That's just not going to do it the way you want to do it. Well, instead of having ease within it, it has what? Dis-ease. All right? One cell. That's all. Just one cell. Now, if you look at what is the glue that holds it all together? What's the glue that holds it all together? Love. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. The glue that holds it all together, the whole universe, is serenity, is love. Just another word for ease or peace or harmony. All right? When you find and examine this cell and make it real big and examine that cell, every cell has components in it, and then it has something that holds it together. And that something that holds it together we call the source. Call that the source, whatever that is. That's you I'm talking about right now. We don't have a term for that. We just call it the source. And that source we'll just call love. And the power of this is unbelievable. Until you believe it, you won't see it anyway, all right? So it's the power of being able to be at harmony within a cell, and what it is capable of is only limited by what you can think. Anything that you can think, anything that you can visualize, you can materialize. You can make happen. Anything. If you're capable of thinking it, because you're thought, and hopefully you will know that, and you'll stop being hooked up on form. And also you'll stop denying your form. This cell, when it doesn't have this in it, what does it do to the cell next to it? It won't cooperate any longer. It will not cooperate with the cell next to it. It will, in fact, gobble up the cell next to it. It will destroy. That's what cancer is. Cancer is the dumbest disease there ever was, because it has no reference to the whole. Therefore, it will start destroying the adjacent cells to it, and in the process, it does two things. It kills the whole, and in the process of doing that, what does it do to itself? It kills itself, doesn't it? So it's a self-destructive life form within a larger life form that has no reference to the whole and will kill the whole and itself too. That's what a cancer is within the system. It's gone amok. Somehow it's gone amok. Now, and it's one of the most ancient, if you study it, one of the most ancient and virulent of disease forms, cancer. It goes back billions of years ago. It's still there, as long as we have disharmony, until we understand that we're all connected. Now, you begin to see this, then all you have to do is make the shift over here and see yourself now as one cell instead of one entity with billions of cells. Now you're one cell. You got to make that shift. And when you see that you are one of these cells, and that if you, of these 6 billion cells, do not have harmony within you, or ease, or peace, or whatever you want to call it, if you don't have that within yourself, then you are going to function in a certain way with the cell adjacent to you. And the way that you're going to function is you're going to see yourself as not attached to the whole. You're not me, I'm not you. I can do anything I want to you. I can kick you. I can push you. I can give somebody a rifle and have you go shoot somebody. Whatever it is, I am not connected. Somehow, I have no reference to the whole. And in the process of being one cell who has an absence of harmony within, you destroy the cell next to you. And that's the history of this being called human being that you showed up in. And it is also being reversed. It has to. It has to be reversed. And unity is a part of the reversal. You can either be on the side of order or disorder in what you do, in what you live, and how you think, and everything about it. That's how important you are. Humanity is incomplete without you. How does cancer get inside a cell? Let's suspend it for a minute. How does disharmony get inside a human being? I become someone who will gobble up in some way the cell next to me. And in the process of doing that, I destroy not only the whole, that is society, but myself as well. But this isn't just a cancer in society I'm talking about that is the people that are in jail or the people who are criminals on the streets and so on, who are the most virulent kinds of cancers. It comes down to virtually everything that you are, all the thoughts you have. The example I've given on some of my tapes is that if you're standing up here with an orange, and I were to squeeze that orange as hard as I could squeeze it, and I were to say to you, what comes out? You would all say, orange juice, of course. And the answer would be to why you get orange juice when you squeeze an orange. Because that's what's inside, wouldn't it? And you know that it wouldn't make any difference what instrument I used in squeezing the orange. It wouldn't matter what time of day I did it. And it wouldn't matter whether I was in Florida or whether I was in California or whether something terrible had just happened or whatever. That when you squeeze an orange, regardless of any other external circumstance, the only thing you get out is what's inside. You must understand that that applies to you too. The metaphor applies to you too. Even though you're not an orange, you're much more complex. And when someone squeezes you, that is, puts pressure on you, that is, says something to you that you dislike, that behaves in a way towards you that you find distasteful, whatever it may be, that you constitute squeezing or stress in your life, and out of you comes anger or hatred or bitterness or stress, fear, despair, you name it. It has nothing to do with who did the squeezing. Nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with what instrument they used or what time of day it was or any of that. It has to do with what's inside. And when you ask, how does orange juice get inside an orange? I just say that's the intelligence that's behind all form. And I give God the credit for that. Not thinking of God as something external to me, but knowing that there's an intelligence behind form that is absolutely, exquisitely, miraculously, unfathomably to us in our form, perfect in every sense of the word. It's a hard concept for us to get across, to understand that you can be perfect and still grow. You can look at a sky and say to yourself, is it perfect? And there can be clouds in it and it can, whatever it is. And you say, well, it's the only sky we have. What else would you call it? An hour later, it's quite different, isn't it? Still perfect, quite different, changing. It's the only constant, that everything is changing. And so what you do is you examine not how orange juice gets inside an orange, but how anger and hatred and stress and despair and fear get inside you in order for you to give that away.
As Wayne said earlier, the way you think about things often determines the way you'll live. Wayne sees thought as an action and a tool we can all use to live our dreams.
I don't think it's a verb at all. I think thought is a noun. And I think it's something that you are, and that you also tune into, that all of us are. And that thought is not just something that you do with your brain at all. It's not like that. Thought is dimensionless. Thought is formless. You can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't feel it, you can't get a hold of it. And so storing it any place is a pretty absurd notion when you think about it. That to take something with dimensions, like a brain, and then say that it stores something that is dimensionless, like thought. I mean, how many thoughts can you get into a storage container? You know, a 36, 48, 166? I mean, you can't put numbers on it. It defies linear. So that thought is something really powerful. And that anything that you are capable of conceiving in your life, any thought that you have in your life, is something that you can turn into reality in the world of form, just by the virtue of the fact that you're capable of thinking it. That's enough. That's all you need. And if you're capable of conceiving it, see, you're not going to conceive of yourself as a creature of vapor and gases and so on. That's not, you don't even have those kinds of thoughts. But anything that you do conceive of in your mind and really get there and use in a certain way can become your reality. If you can learn that and really, really master it, and not just think it's just a nice, fancy thing to say, but that it is a way of life, and it is with me. And it's something I really strongly believe in. And you act as if every thought that you have is already here. All right? You have to act that way. You have to treat your children. I've written a book called What Do You Really Want for Your Children, many of you have read, on how to deal with your kids in an effective way and raise them on higher consciousness principles and so on. And one of the things I've always believed with my children is that you treat them as if they already are what you know they can become. You don't act as if that's something they're headed toward. You understand that that's already there, that perfection, that ability, that consciousness, that love, that's there already. And you treat them that way. And so you're never catching them doing things wrong. You don't spend your life doing that. Best you get is a lease on all of this stuff. And I feel that way about virtually everything that I do in my life, that I don't own any of it. And the sooner we understand the real power of love as something that we don't get back, but it's something that we give away, and as we really learn that and get that message, then we stop being consumed with what we get and what comes to us and how much of it is ours and how much we own. Because one of the things that most of us don't know and don't really understand is that what you think about expands. Whatever is in your life that you dislike, whether it's in relationships, whether it's money, whether it's in power, whether it's illness, whatever it is that's in your life that you would rather wasn't there, ask yourself how much of your time you spend thinking about that. Because if you think about scarcity and what's missing, then that's what will expand in your life. And people who have a lot of scarcity in their life are those who think about all the things that are missing and wrong and what I don't have. And they talk about it all the time, and you hear it all the time. If any one of those life forms in you suddenly no longer has a reference to the whole that is you, instead of cooperating with the cells adjacent to it or the life forms adjacent to it, decides to gobble it up, you have got serious problems, because that's what a cancer is. Cancer is a disease, a life form, a life energy that works within a whole, within a totality, that has no reference to the whole. And as a result, it will gobble up every cell next to it, and in the process destroy the whole and itself as well, won't it? Okay. That's the microscope. Victor Hugo said, look through the microscope or look through the telescope. Which has the grander view? You can't go down to nothing and you can't go out to nothing. Infinity. In, infinite out. So now you are this I that is we. And you have 6 billion, we'll just say, for numbers, cells in you. And see yourself in the larger context of how you are connected to all the rest of the universe, and the same thing is going on. There are invisible principles that are making it all hold together, that are making it all work, independent of whether you agree with them or not, or whether you like them or not, or whether you're... The only thing that will stop the principles from applying and working in your life is if you do the same thing that you might do to stop the digestion, or you become unbalanced, you become clogged, you become attached. You do something to interfere with principles until you stop and start thinking about it or worrying about it or getting attached to it, and then all kinds of crazy things happen. To understand that every judgment that you have about another human being defines you, not them. They're already on their path doing what they do, and your opinion about it doesn't make any. But your judgment interferes with a larger principle of harmony and a larger principle of transformation and abundance and detachment and synchronicity that will not be able to work when you interfere with judgment any more than your arteries are able to work if you clog them up with cholesterol. It's the unclogging process, that once you get unclogged of judgment and negativity, those two things, negativity and judgment, when you get those out of you, when you no longer have those in you, then a purpose is something that will find you. It is not something you're ever going to find. It's nothing you can ever get a hold of. To have abundance in your life, you have to do what you love, or love what you do. That's just a rule. You have to do what you love or love what you do. To be in balance, to be in harmony. And so if you're not doing that, you're clogging yourself up, and you are focusing on what is missing. Now get this about abundance. Whatever you think about expands. Thought is something that you will react to in form as a result of the thoughts that you have, all right? So that whatever you are focused on or thinking about or using your mind for, that is going to expand in your consciousness, just like energy expands that is unimpeded in the universe. You are energy. Thought is energy. And any energy that gets an obstacle in front of it has some kind of an attachment to it, and it keeps it from flowing. The same thing is going on in you. So the two things that will keep you clogged are judgment and negativity. There's nothing missing. See, thought is this beautiful place. Now, visualization is thought. It's thought. It's formless. It's dimensionless. All right? It's that hunk, it's that chunk of you, that 99% of you that you can't touch, you can't smell, you can't see, you can't get a hold of. But it's there, and you live it all the time. All right? And it's you in this package. All right? And so you've got form and you've got non-form, okay? Now in form, if you want to get real good at something, you do what? Practice. So you want to learn how to hit a forehand, right? In tennis, you're going out there and you're going to hit a forehand. And you say, my forehand is really lousy. You say, well, go practice. Okay, I'll practice. And now you hit 1,000 forehands a day. You say, okay, now my serve isn't very good. Okay, you hit 1,000 serves a day. If you hit 1,000 serves a day, every day for a year, your serve is going to be pretty good. All right, right? Regardless, even if you don't know what you're doing, you're trying to get it into the box over there. You throw the ball up and you hit it, and you say that isn't working. You do it 1,000 times, and as you're doing that, you're adjusting all the time. And after you've done that for a year, 365,000 serves and 365,000 forehands, you're good at hitting a forehand and serving, aren't you? That's true. That's how we do things in form. We start out by thinking about them until they become automatic, and then what we want to do is learn how to do them without thinking about them, because our thinking about them is what keeps us from doing them effectively. So we want to do them automatically. We want to have a quiet mind, all right? So you do it enough, and before long it becomes automatic. And when the ball comes at you, you don't say, oh, I got to get the ball, I got to do this, I got to do that. You don't do that. You just automatically let yourself go. And your mind is the thing that keeps you from hitting a forehand, especially on match point when you always double fault. Okay, so you want to be able to let your mind work for you and not be a prisoner of it. So that's form. Practice makes perfect. Now, in non-form, how do you get good at something? What is the equivalent of practice in non-form? Visualization. Imagery. Okay? You become what you think about.
Every single one of us has something that we don't understand about ourselves because we're so into what is linear, what is observable, what we call form. And if you look at, something as beautiful as tulips, but look at it and try to make one. You know, it's a great assignment. Go home and bring me some tulips. But you have to make them yourself. You see, there's an intelligence behind those tulips. And what that intelligence is, we have a lot of difficulty with as human beings defining, because it defies everything that we know in the physical, scientific world, you know. But nobody can go out and make a tulip. They're doing great things with wheat. In Sedona, Arizona, they have a plant now where they're working on one of the things we're going to do to end hunger in the world is we're going to have this synthetic wheat, you see, and it has all the nutritional value of wheat, and it crunches like wheat, and it looks like wheat, and you put it under a microscope, and it microscopically is exactly like wheat. In fact, you can't tell the synthetic wheat from the other wheat, and you can actually get nutritional value from it. What they found, though, the difference is that when they take this synthetic wheat that man is making, and they put it in the ground and they plant it, it won't grow. Something is missing in the wheat, even though it will give you nutritional value. And what is that? What is that something that is missing? I mean, it crunches like wheat. You can make whole wheat bread out of it. You can make wheat cereal out of it, but it's missing something. And that's something, that intelligence that's behind form, the intelligence that supports form, that is in back of all form, whether it's the tulips or these flowers or whatever that is, it's behind you too, you see? And that's what it's about, hopefully, living transformation. My objective, my goal, what I've set for myself, is to have you really and truly have a handle on that thing that is missing in the wheat that you plant, that intelligence that is behind form, to understand it, to see yourself as that, rather than as this package, rather than as the form that you're in, and to be able to take it and apply it every single day in your life.
To be transformed, you have to go beyond your form. In this way, you'll be able to see things as they are. You'll be able to reduce many problems in life and put them in the proper perspective. Wayne tells you how to do this.
You have to be able to go beyond your form. You have to become the observer. You have to stand back and be like an actor on a stage. Here's the stage, and all of the people and all of the things that you run into in your life are part of the play. And you're like doing all of the lines and wearing all the hats and doing all the things that you've trained yourself to do. And that's all part of it. That's all part of the perfection of it. It's all where you've chosen to be. See, you have to understand that a purpose is not something that you will ever have. A purpose is something that will get you. And once it gets you, there's no going back. The analogy is, here's a clock, and here's the hands of the clock, and here's 12, and here's 3, and here's 6, and here's 9, all right? Now, you're born, to me, You're born perfect. You show up. My 5-month-old baby, the second night he's home, he's only 2 days old. My wife has a baby, she's home at 12 hours later, all right, that afternoon, she's home. And she goes into a transformational state when she delivers a baby. She literally goes into an alpha state or to another state. And this is, by the way, what hypnosis is. Nobody does anything to you when you're hypnotized. You make a decision to enter another state of consciousness without any drugs, without any injections, and it's you. And you know everything that's going on while it's happening. Right? So you're born here, and you're born into the 12, and then you start moving away from yourself as you get enculturated. And you're constantly moving away from your true, perfect, loving humanity, all right? And I don't think you can love a child too much. Holding them, you can never hold them too much. And even if it goes against your grain to do it, fake it. Do it anyway. The more love, the more touching, the more feel. And so you find people moving away, and they start trying to please others, and they start trying to fit in, and they start trying to conform and be like the other kids. And then they get a little bit older, and they want to please the teachers, and then they get into relationships, and they start getting angry at the person they're in a relationship with because they're not the way they want them to be. They forget what Robert Frost said, that we love the things we love for what they are. That's what we fall in love with. And then we start only loving them if they will be what we think they should be. And we forget that they're not anything other than what they are. Perfect. On their own path. We're all on the same path, just at different places along it. And so you move away, and you move away, and you move away, and finally you get to the point where you're the furthest away from yourself that you can get in your life. For the alcoholic, this is like the down and out last drunken time that I just can't handle it anymore. It's like you look up and you realize that you have separated yourself completely from this perfection that you were. For some people it's a divorce, for some people it's a bankruptcy. Whatever it is, you get to that low point in your life where you've moved as far away from yourself as you can. And this is where the gate is. The gate is here. When you go through the gate, you begin to have a new intelligence. You develop an incredible compassion for other human beings, incredible compassion, a sense of love towards other things. You develop an intolerance for being victimized, but not a need to confront. In fact, you move away from confrontation. You no longer have to prove yourself all the time. You don't have to make anybody else wrong ever. And so conflict and confrontation are just things you just leave behind, and you do it very peacefully and very lovingly. And everything that you do in life gives you sort of an indication, not so much of where you are, but where you're not. Every time you slip, you see, well, I'm not there yet, and you begin to be aware of it. I often tell people that enlightenment is like this. It's like when you go through a divorce or a separation or something that's really tough for you, while you're going through it, you're in such incredible suffering and such incredible pain that you think that you just can't bear this. You just don't know that you can bear it. And then what happens... And suffering is like this. Suffering comes from attachments. And that too is necessary, okay? That too you need to go through. The pain is okay, all right? Most people grieve over death until they understand that death is a reward. It's not a punishment, it's a reward. It's a moving on. And when you get that death is a reward, you don't have the melodrama and milk it for everything that people do with it. And so you get, in enlightenment, what I say is that you get to this point where you're going through this incredible suffering and you don't know that it can end, and then you get past it, and you get way past it, and then you look back at it. And you go back and you say, I was with that person 4 years ago, and now they're out of my life, I'm divorced or whatever, and you go, I'm so glad I'm not there anymore. I mean, I know that it was all for the best. Doesn't everybody always say that? I know it was for, even the accident, even the alcoholism, whatever it is, the outrage, it was for the best. I had to go through that, all right? And that's like not enlightenment at all. That's just sort of like being a victim of life. Then you get to a point where you're much further along the path. And while it's happening, whatever the suffering is, even if it's a sickness, or it's another breakup, or it's a bankruptcy, or anything that is difficult for you to handle, and while you're going through it, you say, there's a lesson in this for me. And I think I'll just see what the lesson is. And so you're not as much in pain, but you're still pained. But you're not as much because you're seeing the lesson. And the time between the realization that, oh yeah, I had to go through this too in order to get here is much less than it used to be. All right? In fact, even while it's happening, you can almost stop it. You're becoming more enlightened. But enlightenment is getting out in front of those things. Standing out here and seeing, I could go through this and I could go through that suffering and I could and I would learn a lot of things from it, and then I would end up over here. But hell, I ain't going there anymore. I'm not even going to do that. And if he has to be this way or if she has to be this way and I have to move along, I think I'll just move along right now and, or I'm going to stay here and I'm not going to let any. It's like you're getting out in front of it and stopping it before it even gets to you. You used to have to wait till it was way over, and then you got to where you could get a hold of it while it was happening. Now you're avoiding all of it. You don't even need it. You don't have to suffer for those lessons anymore. Okay? That's what enlightenment is. Getting out in front of that stuff and preventing it from even happening by seeing it coming, by understanding thought as something that is not in a temporal sense. Okay? So you get to the 6, and then you cross the 6. And now you're coming home. You're coming back to yourself. You're beginning to treat yourself with more compassion. You're beginning to let yourself flow more rather than fighting it. You're beginning to allow yourself to just be. You're beginning to fall in love with yourself. You're beginning to see the perfection in the people that used to be called your enemies. You're beginning to have this incredible compassion for even a fish. You're beginning to see love everywhere, and you're coming home. And what happens is, once you cross the 6, the nicest thing about enlightenment is you can never go back. That you needed to go through those in order to get to where you are now. All the suffering from the attachments that you have to being right, to collecting things, to your relationships, to your body, to your form, to whatever attachments that you have in your life. It's like you're able to get past them, and you look back on them and you see that you needed to do that. You're doing that now with all your attachments. With all your belief that you can own things, and all your stuff is important, and all the fact that you have to make other people wrong, and all these people that are in your life. That's all stuff that you create. You create it all. And the only way to know that it's an illusion is to awaken. And then you can, from the perspective of going to this dimension, and the next, and the next, and multi-dimensions, you can look back from this perspective, an awakened perspective, and see how stupid it is to be attached to anything and try to own anything. And then what you do is you relax and you slow down and you flow, and you're not fighting any of it. You're not fighting any of it. There's no attachment. There's no need for it. And if it comes, it comes. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And if it's here and you let it go, it's gone. It's okay. It's all okay. And then irony of paradoxes, paradox of ironies. More keeps coming, the more you give away. And that's how it all works. In this beautiful system in which you create everything you need for the dream. And then the ultimate awakening, when you know this is a dream, and yet it's just too real to let go. It's no more real than the dream you had last night that you couldn't let go of either. This one is just 80 years. That other one is 8 hours. But when there's no time, that's the same thing. When you really get that, and you lose the attachment, you can look back on all of it. and totally, peacefully, unattachedly, abundantly, lovingly, forgivingly enjoy it all. And it all works just as perfectly as what it's supposed to do without you doing any of it. There's a word in our language, it's called disaster. Do you know what it means? The origin, the etymology of disaster? It means to D-I-S, associate, from the astral, A-S-T-R. That's the origin of it, dis-astral. Disassociate from the astral. The astral is the plane, the dimension that I'm calling thought. Emerson said, you become what you think about all day long. You are the sum total of your thoughts. Whatever you think, therefore it shall be. Someone said, do not be conformed to this world, but be what? Transformed of it. Thought and visualization are the same thing. It's practice in the astral plane. If you want to learn how to hit a backhand in tennis in the physical dimension that you are, the 1% of you that is physical, you go out there and you hit 1,000 a day, you hit 1,000 a day, and if you hit 1,000 backhands a day for a year, you're going to be able to hit a backhand without thinking about it. It's going to be automatic and you're going to be good at it, and that's called practice. Thoughts, visualization, are practice in the formless dimension. And the more you practice those thoughts, you will act eventually upon whatever thoughts you have. And it's why I tell people who are trying to lose weight, don't try to lose weight, because lose is a negative. Whenever you fight something, you're always weaker. Every time you fight something, you're weaker. You don't want to be a fighter of anything. You want to be a flower, if you will. You want to understand that when you're fighting something, it owns you, and you're always weaker for the result. In order to be the weight that you want to be, you have to see yourself looking the way you want to look. And you get that picture in your mind, and you store it away, and you get that picture, and you have it there. And you see yourself looking that way. And before long, you will act on that picture. You see, if everybody in the world who was against terrorism were for peace, then we wouldn't have any terrorism. The minute that you create a war on something, like the war on drugs, ever since we've committed to this war on drugs 7 or 8 years ago, the drug flow has increased like 1,000% in the world. And there's more problem than there has ever been before. Because the minute you make a war on something, you have to have winners and losers. You have to have people fighting, and people are weaker. And then they're going to fight this, and then I'm going to fight you, and there's no cooperation. And you create this cancer in the world, this fighting, fighting, fighting. And all of you who are against war, or against fighting, or against terrorists, if you spent all of the energy that you have in using it against something, and were for something instead, reversed it to what you're for, and worked for that, see, you can state everything you're against in terms of what you're for. You don't want to quit smoking. You want to be health. That's all. You transcend the need to be quitting and losing, and you see yourself, and you become the treatment instead of the poison. When you take a cigarette and inhale it, and it goes into your lungs and into your pancreas and into your big toe, and it's just like you are the poison, and the poison is you. It's not like you're doing something bad to yourself, like this dualism that's there. You are it, it is you. When you no longer are it or want to be it, you don't have to quit anything. You just see yourself as the health, and you become the health instead of becoming the poison. Well, we can do that in our own lives as well. Visualization works because you act upon the thought. That's why Emerson said you become what you think about. As ye think, so what? Shall ye be? As you think. So visualization works. And it's like how you see yourself. See, people say to me, don't you see all those nasty people out there? I say, honest, I don't. They're just not in my life. When people come up to me and say, well, you live in Fort Lauderdale, what's it like there? And I'm moving there. And I said, well, what's it like where you live? The people are nasty. I said, well, you'll probably find that here too. And if they say, people are great, I said, that's the way you'll find them here too. Some people see hate, some people see love. Same world. It's what you think about. It's how you are thought, you see. See, the world is just the way it is. It's perfect. There's no stress in it. No stress in the world. There's only people thinking stressful thoughts. There's no anger in the world. You can't bring in a bucket of anger. There's only people thinking angry thoughts. That's all thinking. That's all thought. And we are evolving. We're changing. It's happening. It's happening. What's happening on the planet is that more people are getting on the side of order. More people are beginning to understand that it's thought. Visualization also works because everything you visualize, guess what? It's already here. Where else could it be, please? If you've got the thought in your head, where else could it be? Is it in another solar system? Is it another planet? Is it another reality system? What do you want? What do you want? Everything you visualize is already here. Visualization works because there's no such thing as failure. You can't fail. You can't fail. Everything you do produces results. And you either learn from them and move along. That's not a failure. You do something and you learn and you grow. You do something. You don't stop yourself and say, oh, you shouldn't do this. Imagine going up to a tree and look and say, you should be ashamed of yourself. You got moss all over you. You're just disgusting. You don't take care of yourself. That's awful. I don't know what's the matter with you. You wouldn't do that. Just give yourself the same treatment you would give a tree. Don't judge it. Allow it. Allow it to flow. Allow it to... And understand that every thought you have is real. And whatever you can think of, you don't think of yourself as a creature made out of vapors and gases. Like, you don't visualize that for yourself. But whatever you do think, if you can think it, then it's here. All you now have to do is tune in. It's like understanding all of this is like is a radio. If this were a radio up here and a radio dial and you're tuning the dial, you can tune into the highest force, the highest, it's out there. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean anything. Because you can't taste it and touch it and get a hold of it, it's meaningless. You can't get a hold of one thought. If you only believe in what you see, then you don't believe in thought. Because you can't see thoughts, can't handle them, can't touch them, can't do anything with them in form sense. So it's like all of this stuff is blasting out there. You can tune in any place you want. Visualization works because you act on what you visualize. Because everything you visualize is already here. You just have to tune into it. And because you cannot fail. If you're 250 pounds and you want to weigh 125 pounds, you have not failed. You have produced massive results. And the 125-pound person that you want to be, where do you think he is? Or she is? Where do you think they are? You think they're on another solar system waiting to come here? They're here. They're just surrounded by another person. That's all. It's such a simple thing, and most of us don't get that. And finally, visualization works because it has nothing to do with how persistent and determined you are. Forget it. Everybody's persistent. Everybody's determined. Everybody thinks that they really tried hard. It doesn't matter if they go out, and I'll go out and I'll work on something for 2 years, and you might work on it for 2 minutes, and you say, I put 2 whole minutes in this thing, and it didn't work out. I worked my ass off. This is really hard work. I really struggled. I really tried. Everybody thinks they're persistent. It has to do with making your thoughts your reality. It has nothing to do with it, being persistent or determined. Forget it. You don't have to be persistent or determined. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes. That's all. It's such a simple thing. You don't even have to do it. You just have to be willing to. And when people talk to me about erroneous zones and all the luck I had and all of this stuff, and they say, it's easy for you, you're rich and you're famous and you got all these books and you've been on the bestseller list and you've been on the Carson show and all of that. And it's like, I say, well, you think I'm rich and famous? Because I am lucky? I mean, I'm the one you ought to be listening to. I'm not rich and famous because of any reason other than I've used these principles to make that happen. These principles work. And rich and famous is just something that came along. That just sort of happened as a result of going out and doing what you love and loving what you do. I don't spout these principles because I'm rich and famous. I'm rich and famous because I live these principles. That's an important thing to understand. And if there's anybody you ought to be listening to, it's me. I came out of an orphanage and poverty and everything and got it. I mean, you want to listen to somebody who doesn't have it? The principles work. They really do. When you're at harmony. When you listen to what Thoreau said, when you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams and endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, you will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. Abundance, visualization, work for those reasons. My little baby Serena, her and I sit in our pool on this little raft almost every day. And we started singing this song as we did it. And I would get in there and I'd lay down on this thing, and our pool is like, 30 feet or whatever it is away. And I put my arms in there, and she's sitting on my stomach with one leg here and one leg there. And she sort of straddles, and she sits there. Come on, Daddy, sing it. Come on, let's do it. And I pretend like I'm oars. My arms are oars. And we sing. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. Now listen to the words of that. They say it's one of the most perfect songs because it's one of those that has that harmony all the way through it. Every sequence repeats itself, just like in life. Listen to it. Row, row, row. Work, work, work. Live, live, live. Do, do, do. Be, be, be. You call it what you want. Row, row, row. Whose boat? Your boat. Don't row my boat. Don't row your neighbor's boat. Don't row your kid's boat. Row your own boat. And if I want to have a dinghy and you want to have a yacht, forget it. Don't be attached to they should be the way I am. Just row your own boat. Cultivate your own garden, as Voltaire said. Row, row, row your boat. How do you row your boat? Always gently, always gently. You can always be gentle. That means no fighting. That means no anger. It means what's inside is love through thought. It's the cell that makes it all harmonize. Row, row, row your boat gently. Key word coming up. Ready? Down the stream. It doesn't say row, row, row your boat gently up the stream. Most of you are doing that. You're fighting the currents all the time. You're always going against them. You're always trying to get the world to be different than it is, and mad because other people aren't the way you want them to be, and the things aren't the way you think they should be, and everything is perfect exactly the way it is, including your desire to improve it. Always gently and always down the stream. And how do you row your boat gently down the stream? Always merrily, always joyfully, always joyfully, always merrily. All you have to do to go from despair to joy is change the thought that supports the despair. And understand that the intelligence behind your form is your ability to think. One song. Universe. One song. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. I don't have to tell you that. That's all it is. And don't be consumed with whether it's
This concludes Control from Within, a 9-step program to stop smoking. Remember, repeated listenings will help you gain new insights each time you use this program. Pull it down off the shelf when you need to remind yourself of the benefits of remaining smoke-free. Nightingale Conant has many fine audio and video programs to help you improve in all areas of your life. Wayne Dyer has authored several of these programs, and one of them is Choosing Your Own Greatness. In this excerpt, we'll hear the difference between ducks and eagles, and the difference they can make in our lives.
Last Friday, I spoke up in Orlando, and they put me in this beautiful Marriott hotel at the airport there. It's a wonderful hotel. And they put me on the 9th floor. It's called the concierge level, you know. They have a concierge, and this concierge sort of takes care of you. They give you little appetizers, and they give you a little juice, and there's a little bar there, and they charge you $100 more a night, all right? But they hire people to be these concierges. Now, it's not a great job, but it's not a bad job. So the first night that I was there, they had appetizers, and I went out, and appetizers went from 7 to 9. Hot appetizers. Well, I didn't finish running until about 10 after 9. I went in and I said, well, I'd like to take some appetizers back. And the guy said, no problem, I'll get you some. He said, they close at 9, but I know a guy downstairs in the kitchen, and I'll go down and I'll bring some up, and would you like a beer? I said, yeah, cold beer would really be great. And he said, they've got some real nice little chocolate-like things for dessert, little eclairs, and would you like a I said, that'd be great. This guy had no idea who I was or anything like that. And he went out of his way after the time, and all right, that was terrific. All right? The next morning, they have a continental breakfast on the same floor. And so you're supposed to be through with breakfast by 9:30. So I went out there about 10:15 or whatever it was. And I said, I know that you're closed. There was somebody else there. There was a duck there, okay? They replaced the eagle with the duck. And the duck said, wah, wah, wah. Sir, Continental breakfast closes at 9:30. It's 10:15. I'm sorry. I said, I know that. I understand. But I said, I just like some orange juice. I'm really thirsty. I just finished running. I've got to give a talk this afternoon. And she said, sir, 9:30. It says it very clearly. I'm the guy paying $125 a night for the concierge, and she's dismissing me. You see the difference? The difference is like, it's an attitude. It's what one person believes. Now, I can assure you, if you follow through on these two concierges, that you're going to see that eagle soaring all through his life. And this other person is going to go from that job to probably one a little more demeaning and a little more demeaning, and is always going to be wondering why. And if you're looking for people, if you're ever in employment and looking for ways of recruiting people and so on, I'd say great employees are found. They're not trained. They're found. You go out there and you find those people who have that, and then you can help them to do anything and to be anything when they've got that inner attitude.